What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a fun little Wednesday night stream. I think today's Wednesday. I don't really know. We're basically in 2024 at this point. Yeah, so going to have a fun little live hangout tonight. Rips 151, talk about all the fun, Van Gogh stuff. Obviously, I do not have that in my thumbnail, unlike every other PokeTuber does. But we'll talk about that, talk a little bit about our thoughts on 151, and just overall kind of talk about everything that's going on right now in the hobby. So before we get started, we are joined by some awesome people. Obviously, very recognizable face, Mr. Dan, Ketchum All Collectibles. We'll hopefully see some red lights tonight. We'll see. Mr. Pokemon Classics joining us on a live stream. Always a treat. So really happy that he got to make it. And first time on the channel, I believe, Mr. Retrospects, Giovanni's Riz, all the fun stuff. So how's everybody doing tonight?
Doing very well.
Have we gotten our $500 Van Gogh promos in just yet?
I have 10 of them coming tomorrow, I think. Tomorrow and Friday, maybe. I was able to battle the bots. I guess a bot doing battle with bots is more level playing field. So I was able to get a handful of orders through.
What did you buy to get the promos?
I kind of knew that early on there would be issues with like the plush and there would be issue with the sleeves. So I went for like the tote bag and some of the less desirable things. I think I got like a journal or something. But yeah, maybe coffee mugs. I don't even remember. I'm like, I could probably give these to my wife or give these to somebody. And all I want was the promos anyways.
So I'm super bullish on the Dan Play Journal that's eventually going to be auctioned with the Van Gogh promo.
You think TSA will grade Dan's playbook?
Yeah. I love it. Classics, did you end up getting a promo, or are you even interested in that at all?
No, it's not really for me, but I do think that event is really cool. And I'm sure we'll get into like the news and the chit chat later into more detail, but I love fine art and the idea of merging together a promotional giveaway with like an actual art gallery walkthrough for people that actually took it seriously. I think that's a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, I don't want to spoil that topic that we talked about tonight, but that is definitely one thing that, with the crazy videos and then everything that's going on. I mean, just, my personal opinion, I think they should have kept it event only. I think that would have made it a lot cooler. But obviously we'll get into that. Retro, are we at 10 promos? Are we at 50 promos? What are we doing?
I couldn't get any, dude. I tried, but I got cooked. I kept on refreshing. Like I had all the individual SKUs open in different tabs, kept clicking refresh like every minute and just no dice, man. I should have woken up earlier, and tried a little bit harder, but yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll snag some in the future. I'm interested to see what the quality is like. It is English, so those are treacherous waters.
So I did get mine in, and I was talking in Discord with a couple of people, and centering actually really good, really, really good. Very surprising for English because normally it's like 70% or somewhat off center. But they do have a little nick in the corner that I've read is pretty common, which mine does have. So it's going to CGC, obviously. But I'll be curious what a PSA 10 situation looks like. I'm sure they're going to come up here in a couple of weeks. And, it'd be insane if we got a black label, obviously, because the quality, it could just be UPC Charizard all over again. And as Classic showed, what we're going to do, guys, we're going to start ripping some 151. I think release week was, last week? Maybe something like that. I actually got my UPC in the mail today, which I did not expect. I completely forgot when that was coming out. Not going to open that tonight. But if everybody wants to go over, if it's just loose packs or if you're opening an ETB, whatever it looks like, tonight I'm going to open up one of the booster bundles. I have a non-Pokemon Center ETB, GameStop $15 gift card, so made it work. And then I randomly found a binder collection. Now, I do not care about the binder collection, but I was walking in Target and obviously completely out of all Pokemon. That's just all the stores around my area. But I actually was just taking my daughter walking around, and went to the very back of the store to the clearance fitness equipment. And with 2 little dumbbells sitting on top of it was this binder collection. So I was like, this is the universe. There's a Zard in there. Let's pick it up. Call it a day. So Classics, I saw you had a booster bundle. Anything else that you're going to be opening?
Yeah, so I've got 2 booster bundles for tonight. I do have some more. I want to save some for some pack opening videos otherwise that I'm working on. I did pick up an ETB as well, so we'll save that one for now, but we'll go 12 packs, I think, tonight.
Nice. Dan, loose packs?
I've got 36 loose packs handy. I probably won't go that deep because they are selling really well on eBay. I'll probably go like 9. Who knows? Maybe I'll go 18 if I get really wrecked. But earlier today, I sold an ETB to the neighbor kid. It's actually the neighbor kid's boyfriend. He pulled an alt Charizard, and I forget how many ETBs I opened on release day, but I streamed it. I opened maybe 15-ish ETBs. I opened some with my kids otherwise. No alt Zards, and then I sell one locally, and first ETB and alt Zards. So I don't know if that's good luck or bad luck for me.
Well, it's probably good that he got a decent card out of the $90 price tag you probably put on it. So,
50 cash. I mean, 50 cash. Gave him a solid price.
And that solidifies repeat buyer, right?
Yeah, it's like I feel like he'll be back. I think he'll definitely be back. So he's got my number. He knows where to find me.
Well, he had the worst thing happen ever. He pulled a really great card out of the first product bought. So it's like first time's always free or something. Yeah, I've been seeing all the videos coming out recently that have been, these ETBs are broken, whether it's Pokemon Center or regular, and I've seen both. So I'm like, what are they talking about? It's just been a really fun couple of weeks seeing all these videos come out talking about that. But what we want to do, guys, I don't know if we want to just go each person individually. I've never really done a mass pack opening on the channel. So whatever the preference is, does anybody feel like they have the first pack magic feeling right now?
I think it's Dan.
It's got to be. He's got to
start ripping. I'll rip my 9 quick and see where I end up.
All right, I like it. Let me get you. Let's get Mr. Dan full screen here.
There we go. Wish me luck.
Thanks, chat, for coming in. And guys, if I'm randomly stuttering, I'm getting a little bit of an echo on my side, so apologies.
Humble hollow to start, but it is Jolteon. We do like to see the Jolteon.
True.
I feel like an NFL analyst watching a football game and commentating on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not I'm not a pack ripper. I'm not good with the color commentary. If any of you guys want to try your hand at commentating a live rip,
I will in the future have sound bites on here. I kind of figured out how to do it earlier today, so all of you are probably going to get clipped at some point.
I've got a bad start over here. Three regular hollows to start.
Food Top's bad start. That's a quality Pokemon right there.
Oof,
Starmie.
We're getting just regular hollows. This might be a rough go.
So I bought 5 booster bundles from Red and Blue on his YouTube stream and got absolutely wrecked.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
There we go.
Yeah,
that's actually one of my favorite cards.
That is a really cool artwork.
I love that artwork. Yeah, the neighbor kid, he only had 2 hits in his whole ETB. It was that and then the Zard. But I think you can't really complain about that.
Dan, what did we talk about pre-stream?
Yeah, 720 theoretically is what should be. Sorry, I bumped my camera. 720 is what should be coming through theoretically, but I don't know if I believe my my OBS right now. We got the Gengar.
Nice.
Yeah, this is rough though. Two packs to go.
This is where I need my Mason's like sound bites. Playable. Okay.
Yeah.
He always makes me feel good in those.
Where is Mason? We need to get him into the chat.
I know, right?
So yeah, this wasn't an ETB, but this should have been like 3 poster collections, or yeah, that was real rough. So someone's gonna have to save us. Someone's gonna have to save us.
Classics, I think you're up here.
All right. Well, I don't know if I can match that in terms of speed and efficiency, but that's what Dan's known for, right? Is just plowing through all the difficult work. I haven't opened any of these. I haven't opened any of these yet, so I'm going to savor it just a little bit more. And I don't know. We'll see what happens, I guess.
We can tell who the true pro pack opener is because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, this man went through 9 packs as long as it takes me to go through like 3.
So I think I've opened like maybe 50 packs in the last year or two. So I don't do this very often, especially with modern. But this is my kind of modern because this is classic modern. The merging perfectly of 2 different genres. My form on this isn't going to be very good either. I brought a scissors. Don't
I
judge
should have
me.
done that.
To Mr. Walrus, by the way, I saw him in chat and he was asking about my Charmander in the background and why it's wearing a suit. The suit is actually like a motorcycle jacket, and Charmander's my co-pilot when I go motorcycling. Not all the time, but every once in a while. So that's why he's wearing the motorcycle gear.
I think you showed that in that collection pickup video, right? With the
I did,
Blastoise. Yeah.
They came along for the ride. Beedrill.
I watched it, but clearly Walrus didn't. Shame, Walrus.
That's okay. Classic's dropping the most badass response. Oh yeah, I put him on my motorcycle. It's like, okay.
Hey, that's all the rage with Pokemon these days, right? The new generation is like the Pokemon are bicycles. Just ride them.
Dude.
That seems like a weird concept to me, if I'm being honest.
It does seem a bit strange. I saw a really good video. I forget the channel talking about the difficulty
really
coming up.
I'm
Say
sorry.
again?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. I was just saying I saw a video recently that talked about the difficulty of coming up with new designs and kind of how they have to reset everything, and they tied it into the games, and it was really interesting. And I was like, yeah, that actually is true, because once I saw the key Pokemon, I was like, what are we doing here? But yeah, I haven't seen a bicycle one yet. So,
Mr. Walrus, we love you. Because we love you that we tease you.
we do love you, Walrus. You are the chat go.
I really like the Abra in this set too. I know, like, not the most exciting Pokemon, but just the throwback to the original Abra from base set. Oh. Psyduck.
There we go.
We'll take it.
Hollow Energy? Oh, how frequent are those?
I want to
common?
say, yeah, I want to say it's like 1 to 2 in ETB. So maybe 1 in 6-ish packs, if I had to guess.
This is one of those sets that I'll actually be working on completing through actually opening the packs rather than buying any cards loose. And that's pretty rare for me to do with Modern. The last one that I've been working on was Celebrations. And all those packs, by the way, came from Dan. So he's been my plug for Celebrations.
Hey,
So
if you need some 151, hit me up. I already got rid of
$15 a pack.
I already got rid of 9 of the bad packs, so you know the juicers are left.
This Haunter, I love the artwork on this thing. And this is maybe a controversial take out there for everyone, but I've said it before on my channel. I'll say it again. But Haunter should have been the final evolution because Haunter is superior to Gengar.
Spicy take already.
Mewtwo.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, the one thing I am disappointed about the English, which is a pretty common take, I think, is making the Mew and the Mewtwo promos and not chases. I just can't understand the logic behind it, other than paywalling, $120 to get the promos. But
yeah, like I get perhaps like wanting to appeal to younger audiences and get that instant gratification of getting a cool chase card. It wouldn't really be a chase card, but you know what I mean? Like something that's familiar and has the illusion of rarity.
But at $120 product, is that really going after the younger generation,
Totally fair. Scyther, another one of my favorites.
Hey, Mr. Mason Berry.
All right, this one is for Zach. Got the Jolteon. I think I'll savor these first 6 and then take a break and come back to the other 6.
I like it.
By the way, take a break. Oh, I got one left here, though. Don't take me off too soon.
You're back.
I'm a bit of a diva. I want to be on full screen.
He's got the quality. No 144p.
That's a cool Golbat, too. And Articuno. All right, well, it's something.
I did see someone say something about their full screen my card cam here. Something about their UPCs that doesn't make them bullish on it. So one thing that I'm going to try to do, hopefully next week, is I want to get 2 or 3 other people that all open a UPC with me, just to see like what the packs do for the science, just for fun. Because I really don't know if the actual products make a difference on hits, but again, we'll see. Should be a fun experiment. All
I
right.
did pre-order a couple UPCs, so those should be coming at some point.
That's a cool Hitmonchan.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Chansey.
Love it.
And sorry, guys, I'm not on the level of these of the pro tubers. I don't have the extra downward cam I can flip over to, so we've got the extra add-in to the StreamYard.
To me, this set is just going to end up being a guilty pleasure set, not a stonk set. And I know that's maybe opposite of a lot of people out there, but I just like reliving Generation 1.
I think they did a really good job with this, mainly because it kind of gives me, like you said, like Celebrations vibes, Vaporeon. And the fact that it's just really fun to open. And my boomer knowledge when it comes to like modern Pokemon, this is nice because I know all these Pokemon. It makes it easier.
All right, let me chastise Brad G in the chat real quick. You should never plagiarize work in school. I'm an English teacher. Please refrain from doing that.
Yeah, he plagiarized. He plagiarized a joke from Mr. Walrus earlier in Discord.
Oh no, that's like the worst kind of plagiarism.
Yeah, Mr. Walrus takes pride in his original work. There we go.
Venusaur EX and a Hollow Energy. All right, I beat Dan so far, so I'm happy about that.
Ooh. We got the Venusaur.
Shame, Brad G. Ernesto. Retro definitely listing. Unfortunately, Mr. Resto has no 151 to open with us tonight, but we will value his opinions on all the topics discussed.
I'm happy to watch you guys brick. This is exactly why I don't do too much opening, but it looks like Peek's winning with the EXs, so at least that's something.
Yep.
This is all just the collector or the booster bundle.
I think what's cool about this set too is a lot of the cards, not just the chase cards, have really good art. Even the regular, the Mewtwo hollows and Gengar and stuff like that. Like a lot of the really popular Pokemon have really good art, and I think people are going to want them even in like the lesser rarities just because the art's so good. So
like Classic said, like especially with the Abra, I love the throwback to the original like art, just kind of the updated version or expanding on the scene.
Yeah, I mean, like the Arcanine is really good. There's a Lapras that's really good. Dragonite, Gyarados, Snorlax. Like, I don't know. They did really well on this set. I can definitely see why people are enjoying it.
All right, last from the booster bundle. That is an awesome Meowth.
Yeah, that one's really cool.
We see shiny. Flareon.
Flareon.
And energy. So two hollow energies out of that. That's cool.
And you pulled the Vaporeon too, right?
Yes.
All right, so
These
we got
are
all
really the
three.
hits though. So one booster bundle. We give them each their solo. Kangaskhan. And Venusaur EX. We'll take it. Okay. Well, what we'll do then, why don't we do this, guys? Why don't we get into remove that? Let's get into some discussion topics. That way Retro doesn't spend half an hour just staring at us opening cards that he can't.
No, man, I'm happy to watch you guys open. You're good. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, we'll talk through, and let's say we finish our packs at the end of the stream. How's that? That'll be how we'll kind of finale it, I think. which means, Dan, you're going to have to open a few more because that was abysmal. I'm sorry. Put that in there. Okay, so I guess we've talked about it a little bit, but let's go ahead and get Van Gogh out of the way. Let's just go ahead and talk about it. I'm always late to the party on these because it seems like people just literally scour the internet, immediately turn the camera on to record. So obviously there's people guilty of that in this chat. But either way, Van Gogh promos, they've kind of gone nuts. Retro, you said you haven't picked any up. You're getting cooked by the bots, I think. So let's kind of start with that. What is everyone's thoughts on people botting Pokemon Center? Do you care? Is that something that kind of bothers you at a personal level because you can't get something? Or is it just, hey, that's part of the game and we're going to go in and do it and get what we can get? Let's start with classics.
Well, I feel like I don't have a ton of skin in the game because I didn't even attempt to buy anything. And honestly, I've been so busy going back to school with the first few weeks of school under my belt that it hasn't really been on my radar, but just casually observing from a distance. As far as botting things, to me, that removes like the intentionality behind what the promotion is all about. So I don't particularly like it. On the other hand, that's just human nature. And I understand why people are, willing to use whatever tools are at their disposal for it. So I get it. It's just the reality we live in. I think in an ideal situation, though, we wouldn't have those problems. Accessibility would be out there. And like you mentioned earlier, I think the idea of having an exclusive release through the actual museum, since that, at least to me, is the intention of the promotion, is to get people interested in Van Gogh and the actual artwork and the actual museum and kind of cross promote those things. That's how I would prefer to see it done. Obviously, that wouldn't be fair to everybody living outside of that particular geographical region, though. So I don't know.
We've been saying that. It makes me wonder, like, is it because it was an English promo? Because Japanese exclusive promos have in-person events that they can do it, but English promos, I mean, maybe that's why. They're just like, whatever, throw it on Pokemon Center, let's print these into oblivion. Like, it's hard for me to not think that.
Well, and it would probably be really bad press, too, if they have more situations where they have an exclusive item available that nobody can get, and I guess it's kind of morphed into that anyway, unintentionally. But when they mass produce stuff, at least it has that accessibility to people.
Dan, Retro, thoughts on the botting world? For releases like this, doesn't necessarily have to stay on Van Gogh, but we've seen this happen time and time again, especially with Pokemon Center ETBs. They're gone immediately, but this was the first release in a while that they didn't even hit the front page, like without the Discord, private Discord links to be able to go directly to the page. Like I've seen this in sneakers and stuff like that, but I've never personally experienced in Pokemon until this. So, I mean, how much do you care about the fairness in real terms?
You want to go, Retro?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of alluded to it, but in the sneaker world, it's the same thing. We've been dealing with that for years. It's within the confines of the law, free markets, all that sort of stuff. So while you might not like it, I mean, most of the people that aren't happy with it are unhappy because they couldn't buy one because they wanted to buy one and flip it. You know what I mean? And if you look at like Adidas and Nike and stuff like that, they've changed their apps and their release dynamics to sort of accommodate for the fact that botting has become a big part of sneaker drops and things like that. Yeah, but there's lotteries, and I know Pokemon Center Japan has done lotteries and things like that. But if anything, it's a sign of a strong market that they can drop that. And like if there was no demand there, it would sit. People wouldn't be going crazy for it and all that sort of stuff. And not only are they going crazy for it on Pokemon Center, but then they're selling for 2-3 times MSRP on eBay pretty consistently and staying there even after people have gotten a lot in hand and are just absolutely dumping. So it's a sign of a strong market. I think moving forward, there's potential that Pokemon Center might add like a lottery or things like that for releases like this that they know are going to be extremely in demand. But it's free market, so I can't really be mad at it. I respect people's hustle, I guess.
My take is, I don't know. I feel like so much hate gets put on the scalpers, the flippers, whatever you want to call them. Pokemon knows what they're doing. If everything were accessible to everyone, it would just not be as in demand. The most profitable way to manage a monopoly, which when you have such a specific IP that so many people so deeply care for, like Pokemon obviously has an IP on Pikachu, or a monopoly on Pikachu. That they have a monopoly on Charizard. That's the way intellectual property works. So the most profitable way to handle it is to not give everyone everything they want. So they intentionally do this. When they have an Evolving Skies, every time a new set comes out, is this going to be the next Evolving Skies? Is this box going to go to 400 within a year? Is this going to be the next Scream promo? Is this going to be the next Pikachu with felt hat? They know what they're doing, and they're doing it well. And I think if the consumer were honest with themselves and honest with how the world works, a lot more of the blame would point towards Pokemon, because there is a number that they could easily print. Like these promos cost them on the order of cents, 2 cents, 3 cents to print. They could order 10 million of them. I don't know whether they did 1 million or 100,000 or 2 million. I have no idea what the number was, but they clearly could have done a lot more. Like they just relatively recently did special delivery Pikachu, and they saw how that went. They did special delivery Charizard, and they saw how that went. And then, I mean, I know Mason in the chat, it wouldn't be a perfect solution, but Pokemon could have done 1 per address. They did up to 5 on some items, I believe. I think all the items I bought, it was up to 2 each. I think I did 5 separate orders with 2 of each item in them. But ultimately, nobody needs this. It's fine to pass on things like Ketchum All Collectibles, Pokemon's thing, gotta catch them all. You actually don't have to do that. Just FYI to the end consumer. I almost say it's an unfortunate reality, but it's not even that unfortunate. Like, that's just the way life is. You're going to see a lot of flashy, cool, nice things, and you just can't have them all. And you got to learn that. And you got to learn to navigate through life. Capitalism, love it or hate it, it's what we have. You play by the rules you're given. You have a fixed amount of capital. Everyone does. And you've got to navigate your way through life, optimizing your spending to bring you the most value, bring you the most happiness in life. And do you really need that cute little electric mouse with a felt hat on? I mean, there's hundreds of other arts out there that you can buy for the same cost as that. A little bit more patience, a little bit more like, I don't know. That's my take.
Well,
No,
plus,
no,
like,
fair enough.
really quick, I would just say too, because it's for like the 50th anniversary of the museum, right? Or maybe I got that wrong, but it's
No, that's
like
right. That's right.
if they just absolutely overproduced this, to me, like fine art in general is very, about provenance and the original painting and authenticity, and then like the prints that artists release are like really low print, like out of 10, out of 50 serialized, and that's sort of what holds value. And to me, if you're going to do a collaboration with an artist on the caliber of Van Gogh, showing also, like, this is leverage for Pokemon too, right? Because they can go to other perspective IPs and businesses that they might want to do collaborations with and say, hey, look, we just did this collaboration with Van Gogh, MSRP. You could get certain items for $29.99. The cards are selling for $120. They sold out in a day, things like that. So that's ultimately good for their business. And again, like, to show respect to the caliber of the artist that he is and the historical significance that he has, I think it's appropriate that the card is in high demand and difficult to get and expensive. Again, like, not everybody needs it, but I just think it would be weird if like a Van Gogh Pikachu promo was $10, $15. That wouldn't seem appropriate. Maybe like a McDonald's or a Walmart or a Toys R Us type promo, but Van Gogh is a little more posh, maybe I would say. So just wanted to throw that in there.
No, I'd be in agreement with that. People calling like $5, $10 as the floor for these, I can't wrap my head around it, mainly because there's such a cool theme behind it. Now, Classics, I know we have the same take on this. I do wish they would have made it event specific, especially celebrating the museum. Like, it makes sense. Like, that would be like, oh, you have to go to the museum in order to get the merch and get, all of that. But overall the release of all the Van Gogh products, and that's one thing I haven't seen as many people talking about. You know, everybody's talking about the promos, but the different items they had for sale, like for this theme, were actually pretty awesome. Like I've never cared about plushies, and I was like, this actually looks pretty cool. Like I like this a lot. You know, Dan bought a journal, so obviously they're really capturing everybody. Quaxley, of course. We need a Quaxley Van Gogh immediately.
How could you have never cared about a plush? Come on.
I've only cared about your plushes, Dan, not my own personals. But yeah, just the product line they had, everything from sleeves, journals. I mean, it really felt like they threw the kitchen sink at this, and every product I thought from the photos and everything I saw looked really, really good. But yeah, I don't see the floor being a $5-10 promo. I could see these maybe stabilizing around like the $50 price point. It's hard to tell right now. I've tried to find these $50 promos that everybody's talking about. I haven't been successful. Maybe the Dans of the world are buying them all out from under me. But, you know, I think it was really cool the way they did it. I just wish two things. If you were going to do Pokemon Center, I do agree with Mason. I think you should have made it a little more limited. Like you said, Dan, I know that Pokemon, you know, obviously knows what they're doing. They just want to sell out really quick and go, sorry, guys, we're out. That way that next release is just that much more, you know, enthusiasm to buy every single thing in sight. So I do wish they would have done one per. If not that, the perfect scenario, keep it at the museum and sell things like the plushie and the journal and stuff like that all on PC. That's kind of the way I wish that would have gone. Do any of you guys have any thoughts on like how you think that it would have gone better, like the release, or are you about on the same page with that?
I have something to add, but it's not really related to that, so I'll
go for it
first. Well, I was just gonna say, like, I think a distinction could be made too, with the type of promotional release, like Retro was bringing up earlier with the McDonald's promos. Like, those are very clearly intended and targeted for children, and so the buyout of those didn't make really financial sense to begin with, since they're so mass produced and easily acquirable. Where this is something that maybe doesn't have that same audience in mind, where, you know, children aren't the primary demographic of an art museum, particularly one with traditionally historically old paintings. Having said that, I think it would be really cool as if they did still have the accessibility to the promos through Pokemon Center, but maybe if they had like one that had an additional stamp or something exclusive to the location and to the venue, just to sort of differentiate the two and add that extra layer of exclusivity to it and chase. That's how I would have liked to see it play out ultimately, if you're going to have the mass quantities still available, but then still make that event something of noteworthy.
They also could have done like the other arts. Like the Snorlax was really nice. The Eevee was really nice. Pikachu's cool, but it's just kind of mid to me. I don't know. Like I know people are gonna like it, but I don't know. It doesn't hold a candle to the Japanese poncho promos or anything like that as far as art goes, in my opinion. So I think, kind of like Classic says, maybe like you can get certain promos on Pokemon Center, you can get certain promos from the museum, but just like making all the art that they did that you could get in a print, making that available on cards would have been really cool. I think it would have been cool too if when buying the prints, they came framed and it wasn't guaranteed, like it was seeded. So like maybe 1 out of 5 prints, you pop open the back of the frame and the promo card comes in it, like something like that. That might have been kind of cool. I don't know, you know, like you could always wish for more, but overall, like it's a really cool release. The art's really nice, and it's just another win for Pokemon. Like it really is ultimately, like it just shows that they can collab with so many different brands across so many different spectrums and just be successful. And overall, like that's very positive for the hobby, I think. So
what's interesting too, Classics bringing up like, you know, Van Gogh's for a little bit more of an older audience. That kind of transitions into another topic I want to bring up, which I don't want to impact your lawsuit against Pokemon from stealing your motto here, but the Pokemon Classic collection. Let's drop the Van Gogh promos and then just hit you guys with a $400 product. Has there ever been one that's been more expensive for a single item? I've never seen it.
The only thing, if you count it, and it was very niche, very obscure, and it was out of Japan, was the gold-plated or not the gold-plated, the solid gold Pikachu was
1,200, I think.
Several hundred at least. It might have been into 1,000 range. I forget exactly. Maybe it was 1,200, 1,300. Yeah.
Yeah. and I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are on this, because I remember when it first was kind of announced, pre-orders going crazy, people kind of speculated on it, but I'm curious. I haven't really seen a lot of videos on it, so I'm curious on your guys' take on this thing. What is Pokemon thinking with a $400 product like this? What are they hoping happens? And how many of these realistically are they making? Would you speculate? I mean, they can't imagine that people are just going to swarm in here and buy all of these up. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, they absolutely will.
One thing I want to touch on that kind of bridges, I wanted to make the point with the Van Gogh, but one thing that's infuriating, not just in Pokemon, anyone who plays RuneScape might feel the same thing. When they try to go for bot busting, they don't slow the bots down at all. Maybe they make the bots developer have to spend 5 minutes writing new code to change the bot. They kill all the humans. All the humans are like, and anyone who plays RuneScape knows exactly what I'm talking about. Bots are like infested in the game. And every time they create something to stop the bots, it just makes it worse for like regular players. That said, because I don't think that was like an insta sellout on Pokemon Center, but I want to say it sold out within like 15 minutes or so.
Pretty quick.
I got a call from my distributor this morning. I know a lot of people are a lot sooner. I heard through other people, through their distributors, they heard maybe late last week, early this week. One of my distributors called me today and they asked me, how many Pokemon Classic collections do you want? And I said, I know that this is not going to happen, but I would take up to 100. This was my smaller distributor. He said, you're definitely getting one. And if you're lucky, you might get two. He's like, I just wanted to confirm that you wanted up to two. But yeah, he had me throw a number out there first. And to put a number to it, it's impossible. Very low. But one thing that I immediately go to, if anyone can see what I'm pointing at here Magic 30th. It's just funny. Magic 30th put a cost of 1,000. Apparently too far, all the blowback, all the this, that. They had further intricacies with the whole, was it Mark Rosewater saying reserve list, blah, blah, blah. But Pokemon has never said we're never going to reprint a card again. So they didn't have that added aspect of it. But yeah, I think, not investment advice, I think it's going to perform well. I think it's going to be severely limited. And I got one in, not knowing if I was getting it wholesale direct from my distributor. I got one in full retail through Pokemon Center in that 15-minute window or whatever, because I do this full time and I'm very engaged in Discords and all that. And then I'm going to probably take 2 from one distributor and maybe 3 or 4 from another distributor. So I'm probably going to have 6 or 7 tops.
As of right now, I just looked. Walmart.com does still have pre-orders up, and you can pre-order up to 12.
That's
just
surprising.
throwing that out there for anybody who's curious. But I don't know how often Walmart cancels pre-orders or if that's even a thing. Obviously, I've heard GameStop doing that, but that's the only sort of asterisk that makes me think, like, is this Charizard UPC level where all these retailers will get them? I don't know. Or I mean, I've kind of thought about, like, because I know that certain LGSs don't get as much allocation, but then like randomly GameStop, Target, Walmart will get a ton. So could it be one of those situations? That's kind of where my brain goes when I can still, as of right now, pre-order an entire case. And apparently, I guess it's going to be filled. I'm not sure. You were shaking your head, Retro. So what are you thinking, man? I got to hear your thoughts on this.
I just think I think it's free money. I think it's a great product. I think they know exactly what they're doing. Like, people are going to buy them, open them immediately, sell the playable stuff on eBay, and grade the cards. The cards, like, the players don't want the cards anyways. They're not even playable. The players want the nice, damage counters and the high quality board with the, the little metal ball thing or whatever that's like the replacement for flipping a coin. I think it's perfect because players don't want to pay $400 to, like, basically sell the decks, and flippers don't want to ship a big giant box, right? So I don't know. I think it's perfect. I think I don't know, like people like worried about pricing and stuff like that. It's worth it. I mean, there's so many base set hollows in there that it's just like I don't know. The price is so I don't know. Yeah, to me it seems pretty obvious. Like I was honestly pretty surprised that a lot of people were just not stoked on it or thought it was overpriced or whatever. It seems like a high quality product. Like people are saying this is the most expensive product they ever made, but it's also like, when has Pokemon made something maybe this high quality? At least in the commercials for it, like the board and the damage count and everything, it looks really nice. It doesn't look cheap. It doesn't look like the random little stuff you get out of ETBs to play the game with. Like, it looks like a premium product. So, yeah, and I don't think it's going to be, I don't have a distributor or anything like that, but I don't think it's going to be Charizard UPC level, because logistically, I mean, there's so many things that go into that product that I just don't see them remaking it. Like, a Charizard UPC was easy to make. It was a playmat, 3 promo cards and packs. That was it, with sort of like a cardboard slide out type deal, right? And I think that's a lot different than recreating all that comes with a game board and things like that. But yeah.
Well, Class at 12, his comment, to be honest, I'm not sure the players want any of the stuff. I've played pretty competitively. I can't imagine people at my shops going for the board or any of the extras. What's interesting is you're releasing something that you're really presenting as like, this is what you can play with, but the cards aren't playable. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think because players aren't going to have any sort of way to like get this like, most players probably aren't doing this full time and have distribution and things like that. So the people that get this product are going to be flippers who are going to break it down and open it, sell the meta stuff or whatever you want to call it to the players that are going to buy it on eBay. And, I'm not a player, but just from what I know of the market and what I've seen in Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, people love max rarity. Iono is expensive because it's a waifu, but it's also expensive because people like max rarity on cards. And so rather than just buy the regular trainer, they're going to go for the special art rare, or, special illustration rare, I think it is in English. Same thing in Yu-Gi-Oh. When a card's really playable, the Starlight version, which is the most expensive version of that card, it's not like people are grading these. People aren't grading like highly playable meta cards in Yu-Gi-Oh. Players are driving the price up because they want max rarity for their deck. It's the reason there's a market for sleeves. It's the reason there's a market for high-end playmats, worlds playmats, deck boxes, all that sort of stuff. So I don't think it's good to make like a sweeping generalization, say like all players aren't going to want this. I think there definitely are, and the market shows that there are players that pride themselves on having more premium products to show up to these events with. So
I think Walrus echoes that statement. You can tell who's real by who plays at a $400 board and who plays unsleeved on cement floors. I guess it is a flex if people do decide to show up with it. But, I mean, do you think that's something – I mean, obviously grading the cards, that's probably going to net the most ROI, I would imagine. But what do you guys think this does sealed long-term? I mean, do you think they'll release something at this price point going forward if this does really well, like an annual type release, like every few years? I mean, what could you speculate? Like, what would you – if you're in charge of Pokemon Company, this does really well, what do you choose to do?
Make money.
Well,
it's a test. Like, yeah, I say it half as a meme, half as like they are going to push the bounds of what they can do. They saw what Magic did. They saw how it was received. They saw that Magic went too far in a lot of ways. I think part of Magic going too far was the price point, and then part of it was like history that Pokemon doesn't have. Magic has said, again, I think it was Mark Rosewater, but it might have been someone else. There was someone very high up. Think of it like a what's his name? Ishihara. Think of if Ishihara had said, we know that we've done base set Charizard, base set 2 Charizard. We know that we've done evolutions. If he said, we will never print another base set Charizard again, that would probably have a positive effect on all the current base set Charizards that were ever printed. And if Ishihara went so far as to say that we will never in another product print a base set Charizard again, irrespective of back, irrespective of playability, because supposedly that there's a forum post, there's some Mark Rosewater website somewhere where he said that we will never print reserveless cards again, even if we make them with a different back. So this product above me here is a direct it's directly against what his statements were. And obviously his statements, I don't think they're like legally binding to Wizards of the Coast as a whole, whether or not he held a high position at Wizards of the Coast at the time that that product was made or whatever. Pokemon doesn't have that history of, that's the thing. Magic had that history of a broken promise. So I think partially it was the $1,000, but partially it was the broken promise from the very high up guy. And Pokemon doesn't have that. And if you look at Pokemon, we always spout this highest grossing media franchise of all time. Trading cards is only a tiny portion of that. They print money off media. They print money off video games. They print money off these canvases, off these plushes, off t-shirts, everything. The vast majority of the money they make comes off all that stuff and not cards. So they're trying to bump that revenue from the trading cards up. It's like, how do you do it? Well, you up your printing from $2 billion a year to $10 billion a year, but you can only take that so far, and there's certain risk in taking that so far. I'm actually going through a very similar thing with scaling my business, scaling my profitability as a one-man operation. The best way to scale any business, if you can, is to increase your average sale price. They're looking at methods to increase their average sale price through products like that. And that goes a long way. When you're selling $160 booster boxes that have 36 packs, 360 cards, well, when you can do one fancy product, and there's a limit to it, you can only do so much of it, but you got to test the limits. Like, how do you know where the line is unless you tiptoe up to it and test it out?
It definitely feels like that's kind of what's happening. Like they're testing the wallets of their consumer base, at least like Q3, Q4 of this year. It's like we've got 151, then we have a regular set, then we have this Pokemon Classics like products coming out. It's like it just feels like, I think somebody said it in the chat, like they are just pumping out really solid products, but they're just dumping them all at the same time. So that is a good take. It does kind of feel like that, like how much can we get away with, or how much will be absorbed? You know, and who knows? Are they making up for Charizard UPCs not selling well? You know, at least in the card sector of the business. Like, I don't know, because I can still order a Charizard UPC, I think, off of Pokemon Center. I think those are still on there, but I could be wrong. What do you think, Classics?
Yeah, so let me unpack some thoughts, and I'll first show off my original Game Boy Advance that I was showing you guys earlier. But lately, I've been playing a lot of Pokemon trading card game. For those of you that don't know this about me, I ran a league when I was first originally starting out in Pokemon and had a great time doing it. My brother and I played a lot. We had a neighbor across the alley that ended up marrying my brother, so she's my sister-in-law now, and she's still very much a fan of Pokemon. So I feel like if there's no target demographic for this product out there, it's me, because, well, it has my name on it, like pretty much literally, which, you know, I'm going to get my royalties one way or another.
Right.
Yeah. But I would really like to have one, just simply to play the game with it. And I still have my old decks, but when it comes to playing the game, I want to play like what I was familiar with. I want the vintage experience, and the game has morphed so much that I haven't kept up with, that I think I would be intimidated, like starting with entirely new cards and building decks from scratch. But at least that would be a easier transition back into gameplay. So I could easily see myself visiting my brother, my sister-in-law, unpacking the 3 decks, spending a night playing the game. But that's a really steep price point to do that. And it's not something that's I feel like is going to appeal to a lot of people for that specific purpose. So like we've already speculated on here, I think the vast majority of people that purchase this product will do so either as a sealed investment and see how it does over time. If it's one of those exclusive products that's so difficult to find in the aftermath that it just increases in value from there, or more likely break it down. And we all know that base set Charizard is base set Charizard, and regardless of what form, shape, or kind it takes, there's probably going to be some value there to extract, especially in the early stages. So I think that's what we'll see probably, is a lot of the ones that are purchased will be broken down. Maybe the sealed ones appreciate in a more linear fashion over time. I don't see it being a very attractive product for players, besides people like me that are like, yeah, I just want to casually play, but not have to do the work of going back through building decks and relearning all the new nuances to the game. I don't know if I really added anything of value there, but that's just my perspective.
You definitely did. It's good to hear somebody who says like, "Hey, I'll buy it and actually play." Like that's something that I couldn't imagine a person until you just said that, like, gave your story on like why you would enjoy that. I look at a $400 price point and I'm like, there's no way somebody's breaking this out to go, hey, we don't even need sleeves, and just start playing with it. Like I just can't even foresee that happening.
Let me amend that statement too. That's what I would want to do with it. I don't know if I would have the nerve at $400 and knowing what the product is, especially if it is fairly difficult to get a hold of. It's unclear at this point, like how exclusive it's going to be. But if it were, I would be tempted just to leave it sealed because, where's the other opportunity to replace it if I want one as like a collector item rather than just one to enjoy?
I could definitely see it being a very fun thing in like, say, 10 years or something, like opening it up. And then maybe, I mean, granted, depending on what the price point is, if it's like, oh, this hasn't appreciated too much, or you're just doing it for content, like, let's open this up and actually play and like stream it and do that. That would be pretty cool, I think, because 10 years from now, it feels like a lifetime away in that game. Retro, do you think Sealed has a chance at this? Not to go full like in on you here, but like, should we be shoving these in a room and forgetting about them and hoping for the stonks, or is it full breakdown long term?
I think because so many people are going to be opening it to grade, and if it's not really produced in mass, that's going to bode well for the sealed price long term. I don't know. I think at some point, like there's probably sealed collectors out there that want like one of every specialty product or something like that. And if it's a premium product, you got the base starters in there in hollow form. I don't know. I'm not your sealed investment guy really, but I could imagine it would appreciate, fairly well. But again, like it's tough because it's probably going to be pretty heavy. It's probably going to cost like $30 to ship. Even if it appreciates 20% in a year and you're up to like $500, pretty much all your profit's going to be eaten up by like eBay fees and shipping. So I don't know. It's tough. I think a lot of stores too that don't even grade. I expect when it comes out, you'll have a lot of TCG player stores that got allocations of them just opening the product and breaking it down and selling the cards as near mint singles just because it's going to be less of a shipping burden on them. And they could probably actually make more money selling the cards individually potentially. So again, not your sealed investment guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do well. It seems like all this kind of stuff, like your Pokemon Center, anything exclusive, like it does really well. And I think that reflects well on Pokemon, that their secondary market prices of their items hold value. I think that looks good on the company, right? Like if no one wanted your stuff and it was a Funko Pop situation to where the market was very, very narrow and only a few things really held value, I don't think that the TCG Pokemon TCG market would be as healthy as it is. So
yeah, not to go the route of like the Van Gogh promos, but it kind of makes me wish they would have released this product at like Worlds or something, like a Worlds exclusive event, like something like that. It just seems, I don't want to say it's a waste, but when I start seeing it on like Walmart.com and things like that, like you were talking about exclusivity, it sort of loses its charm to me a little bit. Like it's still a great product, I think, but I think that so damages any sort of, let's say, not to make it all about money, but like long-term gains on a product like this with such a high retail price. Like I think that's really what hurts it a lot. So I think it almost, like you said, kind of forces people to break these down just to be able to recoup cost. I mean, even if you wanted to buy one to break down and then one to keep, you're $800, $900, let's say, after tax before you've even sold anything, paid grading fees, anything like that. So you're really in for about $1,000 for the gamble if you're getting 2 boxes. So it's, I was just really surprised when I saw that because I didn't hear anything about it. I just saw somebody post it in Discord and I was like, what's this? And I was like, $3.99. What resale side am I on? And it's like, oh, wait, this is Walmart. This is actually retail. Like, what am I doing? I pre-ordered one because I think it's a really cool product. I actually love the box. And that's one that I could see myself kind of absorbing just to hold on to just because it is a cool display piece. But then I'm like, you almost kind of have to break it down and kind of go for the starters, like you said, grade them, especially if the quality is good, which English is kind of up in the air. And Van Gogh, the Van Gogh promos, I saw a lot of people asking in the beginning about like quality and like what they look like. I've only heard that the corners, top left specifically, it's almost like not a Masaki dent, but like very common to see those bent or like just kind of a ding in those. So it kind of makes me nervous. Like centering looks like it got fixed, but if they get this and these cards are Charizard UPC quality, I know I keep bringing that up, but if it comes in, they're all off center, they're not grading well, like people could really take a bath on this product, which would be unfortunate.
I think that, I don't know, just if you look at Celebrations, I think the reason that Celebrations had good print quality is because they weren't doing all the crazy Giratina Altar, 7 different layers of texture and all that sort of stuff. Like it was half art Charizards, right? Venusaur, Blastoise, all that sort of stuff. So that being the same with this product, I would think that the quality might be a little bit better just because I would imagine it's easier for the machine to produce that in a high quality fashion and maybe have less issues. But yeah, we'll see. It's definitely a risk with English product. You could be opening and getting little corner dings or things being off center. So we'll have to see what happens with that.
What's funny too, timing wise, because I can't remember the release date. I think it said, maybe I still have it in front of me. Arrives by Saturday, December 23rd. So they're guaranteeing the Christmas present level of this. It's just interesting to hit that at the holiday season. I mean, if you're going to sell it, I guess that would be the time to do it. Or I guess I could kind of see it either way. You know, people have a lot of things to buy, you know, for family and stuff like that, or you're buying inventory or whatever it is. It's interesting to see a $400 product drop holiday season. Like that just seems like such an extreme amount of money. You know, you would think you'd wait for tax season or tax return season, right? But
well, it's a weird Christmas season product too, because it's not necessarily aimed for children, especially at that price point, and just for what it is that it has all of the like vintage stuff to it. So I don't know, that I guess if you're going to sell something, there's plenty of people out there, myself included, that get ourselves gifts for Christmas. You know, you can't get out of that holiday spirit when you're seeing all the deals on Amazon and you're like, well, I've been good this year, I deserve a little something too. But I don't know, it seems like a weird marketing strategy to me.
It does release November 17th. I mean, it is still right in that holiday season window, but I just Googled it to be sure, because when I talked to my distributor, I was pretty sure it was mid-November.
Yeah, I think you had a good kind of description of that, Dan. It's like, it does feel like a test. Let's release it literally like right in the middle of the holidays and just see what happens. So yeah, it'll be interesting, you know, to see the future of this. If we see another $400 product, if they end up like saying, hey, Dan's been pushing Magic 30th, he brings the box out every video, we've got to put a $1,000 product out here. Like, we've got the people on our side.
On that note, if I can, I'm getting all I can. I got 1 through the Pokemon Center. I'm probably going to get 2 each. 2 at best. I might get like 6 more through my distributors, but I'm paying like $250 each, I think, through my distributors. What would be your limit? And I swear TPCI did not put me up to this question. This is me asking out of my own curiosity. So Colt, you pre-ordered 1. If it were 600, 800, 1,000, where would you have tapped out?
I don't know if I could tap out, to be completely honest with you.
Getting crazy. If it was $2,500, same product.
I think anything over 3,000, I'd have to check out. 2,500, obviously this is crazy numbers for a single product, right? I mean, they'd have to like nail everything correctly. 2,500 I could see, but like, I don't know, you get over 3,000, it's like, that's such FU money at that point, like on a single product. I mean, not that a $500 difference is that much, it's just my brain. I'd have to have a couple conversations with the wife, probably dropping it on that. I'm like, well, you know, they've never done this before, you know, whatever. But 1,000, there would be no hesitation as long as they were serialized. I mean, they would have to do something that would really drive value. They couldn't just release it and say, hey, we've got a cool promo in here. Like, I couldn't justify it for that.
Like if they told you there were 1,000 units or 5,000 units, whatever the number was.
Yeah, they'd have to have something either like, here's how many of this product we're printing, or here's how many of this serialized card or multiple serialized cards are in this that you have a chance of pulling. Even then, that would be hard. But I would still. I mean, I know myself. I'd have to try. Like, you got to be a part of it, right?
We're gonna get there. In all of our lifetimes, we will get there.
But this might be the test.
Yeah, I mean, within 10 years, I think we will dip into maybe not serialization. They're already serializing like watches. They're already serializing like the skateboards are very, very low print run. I don't know if the $5,000, $10,000, I don't know if those are real. I kind of lean towards them not being real, but there is a lot of money out there, and Pokemon's just looking at the different ways that it can capture it because love it or hate it, they're a business ultimately. And honestly, like as a consumer, there's definitely some entitlement out there that certain people think that they have to be able to have everything that's made, but that's just it's a reality that can't be the case. And me personally, I'm of the opinion that like if Pokemon can make that much money, that's great because that means Pokemon's going to be here for longer for me to enjoy. I'll enjoy the aspects of it that I can enjoy and that I can afford. But like if they make, I mean, I'm at the point now where when you said 2,500, I think there were some reactions in chat. If they made a $2,500 product, it wouldn't be, am I buying one? It's how many am I buying?
Yeah. Well, here's a question for you, Dan. Let me flip your question back to you. You can't sell it. What's your price point? You cannot sell it.
$150, $200 maybe.
Okay, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, the only reason I actually bought a chess set for $200. I don't know if I'll ever play it. Like I love Pokemon. I still collect Pokemon. It's hard for me to collect cards anymore because the market just values almost all of them universally more than I do. But I collect the canvases. I went I mean shout out Cardinal Gaming. I went, it wasn't even all Pokemon, but I spent like $70 on a few plushes for my kids as like a souvenir. Like I'm definitely giving Pokemon a lot of money, giving Nintendo a lot of money. And I love their IPs and I love supporting them. I hope they exist in 50 years. I hope they outlive me. And I think if they can create these massive high-end products and then actually sell them and get market acceptance, that's just good for everybody who wants them to survive into the future. That's my take. And I know that would be like very appalling to certain people. But that's what my genuine take is.
Well, and to clarify for chat, when I say like $2,500, $3,000 is kind of my limit. Like this is purely for I can make money on this, and there's got to be products in there that just have such, high ROI possibility. Like it would have to make sense from that, because Dan said $150, $200 for himself. Like me personally, like maybe a $500 product would be like if I'm just buying it and I can't sell it, and it's specifically for me, it's going to have to fire on all cylinders for me to just buy and like hold it and look at it, pull it out of my closet once a week, whatever it looks like. So yeah, that's what I would say on that. Retro classics, any price point for you guys? I'm curious. Let's just stick to like you have to buy it for yourself, no selling. Retro's like $0, but classics, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the price point where it's at is right in that threshold for me. About $400, $500 is where I'd probably pick one up. But like I said, the internal conflict is, do I destroy the value of it by opening it simply to play with, even if it is protected in sleeves and stuff? Or do I keep it sealed and then not enjoy it and just have it sitting there as a display piece? And that's where the internal conflict comes for me, because I would really want to at least use it. But I'm also a collector, and collectors, we don't play with our collectibles.
That's a funny motto.
That's why you got to buy two.
That's why you got to buy two. Yeah. Pokemon thinks the same thing, Dan. Us. Retro, would you do you have a price point for not being able to flip?
No collecting over here, boss. I'm all set on that.
All right, what's your price point? If obviously you can sell it, just like general reality here. Do you have a tap out price, or is it just like, Dan, max the cards, get the points, and fire on all cylinders here?
I think it just depends on like what the dynamic of the product is, right? Like there's a lot of outs on this classic box, right? Like you're reducing your cost basis by selling all the, playable type stuff, the board, the counters, dice, blah, 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 all that. So you're reducing your cost basis there. There's 3 decks. There's tons of opportunities to grade cards, not just Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur, but the pre-evolutions, right? Like Charmander, Bulbasaur, Squirtle. There's Alakazam, Mewtwo. I think Chansey, like tons of opportunities in there. So there's a lot of outs in that product. And so because of that, I think it kind of warrants that higher price point. If it was like $1,000 box and it had one card in it, you have less outs. And if you open it and the card's completely mint, but it's OC, like you're kind of out of luck, right? Because most of the premium was probably tied up in the fact that that product was sealed. It's kind of like a Mario Pikachu box situation, or a lot of the Japanese sort of like 2014 to 2016 era boxes. A lot of the boxes hold premium still to the cards in PSA 10 because it's basically make or break. There's only like 1 or 2 cards in there. You have to open it. It has to hit a 10 for you to sort of make your money back. Otherwise, it's just better to keep it sealed. So it would just depend on like what the product was. Again, like with Charizard UPC, you can buy it right now, open it, and make money, because even if the cards aren't gradable, the value of the packs, because Sword and Shield era has done so well. It's got Evolving Skies packs in there, Brilliant Stars, blah blah blah. Like you can just open it, sell the contents, and make money. So there's outs on products like that. So your risk is a little less focused on, like I said, just having to hit the 10 on one card. You have so many options, and so because of that, I feel like that would give me a little more peace of mind, you know, on spending on a more expensive product like $500,000, whatever. So,
can you guys remind me, the Classic Collection box has the exclusive Mr. Mime in it too, right? The one that was originally only.
Yeah.
I imagine that card would have a decent following then too.
Creepiest Pokemon ever, but I'll agree with you. As Bretchen would say, I'm all set on some Mr. Mime.
Mr. Mime was just trying to help, bro. He was like cleaning up for Ash's mom and stuff. He was like the maid, you know, but he just got no love.
Yeah, imagine getting caught and released, and you're like, who am I battling? They're like, this floor, here's the broom, and that's your legacy.
I actually really liked him in Detective Pikachu. You know what I mean? Like when the dude's trying to get the info out of him and he like locks him in the thing and he's gonna like set him on fire or whatever. Like I don't know. Mr. Mime as a character in that movie was pretty good. So, but I agree, he is a little bit creepy.
Mr. Mime and Jinx just creep me out, man. Like I'm not into it at all. I do want to jump on just a couple of chat questions because everybody's been dropping stuff and they're roasting me for not answering anything. So Chevals, I can't even remember how to say your name. I got corrected like 47 times before, but I scrolled all the way up, all the way back because you were like, you didn't even answer this. Thoughts on sleeving slabs, Peak? So I don't know if this is like trolling or like, I don't know what, or if it's just a serious question, but I'll answer it seriously. It's great, not completely necessary. I think it makes the slab feel better. But I'm also the guy who rolled up to Collecticon with a backpack full of raw slabs, no sleeves, and they were just kind of dumped in there. So like, I mean, for more expensive cards, for sure, when I ship orders out, like if it's under $50, like you're not getting a sleeve. It's just how I feel. If it's not a 10, you're not getting the sleeve. And it's not like I'm tight with them. I just am like, am I going to go out of my way to do this for like, say, a $20 or $30 card? Probably not. Yeah, I'll probably get flamed for that, but that's just my Classics is like,
I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
It's like unsubscribe instantly.
Yep. I'm leaving, you guys. I'm out.
He's just gone. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts on slabbing or sleeving slabs, but
yeah, you got to sell slabs, and then when you're selling the slabs, regardless of the price, even if it's a $5 slab, you put it in the sleeve. You throw a business card in there into the sleeve along with the slab. There you go.
I think you don't retro, do you?
No, they go straight in the mailer, baby. No sleeves. No
you guys
sleeves.
are monsters.
I sleeve all mine, except for if I'm like bulking them out or if I'm sending them on consignment to somebody. But I sleeve all mine sold on my eBay.
So PSA 6, MetaZoo slab sells for $15. You're throwing that guy in a sleeve and shipping it out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, chat. This is the difference between a real professional business and people like me. I'm just
lately though I'm smarter, and I'm not grading it to begin with. But if I end up with it, I'm just sending it to Probstein. I'm not listing it myself.
It's up to him to throw the
Dan's the
sleeve.
professional. I'm just very passionate about the cards.
Oh, that's funny. Chevals. I'm just throwing all the names out here. So I'm just going to throw in your other question here. You said, why do they keep on printing so many theme decks? Pillars of the hobby, I'm assuming is the joke. Answer me. Any of you guys can take this one. I do not.
I don't think they're doing theme decks anymore, right? Isn't it all just it's like the battle decks or whatever? Primarily, though, I think they're to get playable cards out for cheaper to the TCG player base. Years back, I remember I was doing the not quite 99-cent single grind, but back in XY era, I was doing a lot of like play sets of trainers for $1.99, $2.99. I remember when Versus Seekers were $19.99 for a play set of 4, $29.99 for a play set of 4, and you used to have to buy like some random, I can't remember off the top of my head, but like Breakthrough, Breakpoint. I think they had decent trainers that were pretty playable. I want to say they had like Max Elixirs. I want to say they had potentially, I think one of them had Versus Seekers, but now it's just a lot easier in general. I think, and maybe Mason, if Mason's still in here, he'll probably be able to echo that. Generally speaking, battle decks are a lot more playable off the bat. You can crack them out, and not that you're not going to go win worlds with it. You're not going to go win a regionals with it, but it's going to be generally a lot more competitive than a theme deck would be in the I forget when they quit doing them. I want to say Sun and Moon era. I don't think they did it all Sword and Shield era.
I'll be honest, I really don't follow it too much. Whenever I see a theme deck, I just imagine it's an education piece more than anything. That's just my...
Vivid Voltage did have them because there was a Charizard one. So maybe it was sometime in Sword and Shield that they broke off doing them.
I couldn't tell you anything.
Retro, any thoughts?
No, not really. Like I said, I don't have distribution or anything like that, so I'm not the person to talk to on like English sealed dynamics and stuff like that, or playability for that matter.
This was a really good question from Jackson, even though I really don't know everything that's on the Premier auction right now. But can you all discuss this Rare Candy Premier block coming up? Seems like the platform is really ramping up. How many insane cards there are in each block? So maybe just a general question on Rare Candy as an auction platform. Jackson, just to kind of echo what you said, they have had some insane heavy hitters in their blocks. Like it's crazy to see like PSA 10 TMBs, SSBs. Like it's pretty ridiculous. I think that's ramping up. I think this is definitely, and I think this is their goal. I don't think their goal is to take over like an eBay or a whatnot and like really become like a very casual auction platform. And that may be kind of what the marketing is, but realistically, I think they're in there for kind of the mid to especially high tier collector, flipper, buyer, whoever that consumer is. But yeah, I mean, Rare Candy has had, I would say they definitely go like toe to toe with some of the other big auction houses. I say the actual big auction houses with quality of Pokemon cards specifically. I don't think they dabble in any kind of sports or anything like that. So it's primarily Pokemon. But yeah, some of the cards they've had have been absolutely insane. When we were at Dallas Collecticon, I remember John, when he was working for them, like I went over to the booth and they had, their TMB PSA 10s, SSB PSA 10s. And I'm like, these are worth probably like half of these booths if you really had to take out like what the resale value is. So it was pretty crazy to see. Have you guys used Rare Candy at all? I was a beta tester for their app, but I've never been on it. I've never done anything on it. What are your guys' thoughts on it? Have you looked into it? Is it attractive to you at all?
I'm not very familiar with it. I do know of like the major collection acquisition that like Leonhardt featured and that John's talked about a bit. So I know they have the cards and there's some bangers like you were saying. I wonder if that's like the foot in the door for building the auction platform, though, is just having that level of product available to get all the interest in, and then probably transition from there to more of like a competitor, like you were saying, for some of the other auction houses and trying to lure in more of that higher end Pokemon market. But I haven't really followed the auctions. I really wasn't even aware of how regularly they're doing them. So I don't have a lot to contribute there.
I know they have a buy it now section, and they have their rare candy drops that they do at least once a week, and it's like modern product or vintage booster boxes or vintage packs. Like you can just go on without even bidding and just buy from them. Which the prices are market, but they have a pretty good assortment of products.
Is there any like distinguishable elements to their platform that are different from the existing auction houses in terms of like fee structure, buyer's premium?
There's no buyer's premium.
Yeah, it's just straight up buy, and that's the price plus obviously your applicable tax. On the selling end, I don't know. I would imagine they're either no fees or, well, they have to have fees, but probably like very low fees, probably to get in the door and attract people with these collections to actually sell in there. Or primarily all the big cards are their own buys and their own selling to attract those big bidders to say like, well, I'm going to continuously come back to you guys because you have extremely rare cards, condition, and just general rarity. I mean, they had a ton of snap cards on there. I mean, they've had some huge heavy hitters on there.
I think I talked to them fairly early on, and maybe my opinion of them soured some due to the conversations that I had. But I think they're doing well enough off of the just absurd come up that they had with that collection. Astronomical. I don't know that they're getting many other like third-party consignments through them right now. I think a lot of it is tied to that collection and then tied to things that they're purchasing, which if the goods are good enough, they're bringing bidders there to bid on those. I've bought a couple things through them. I think, I mean, PWCC lately has had some technical difficulties. I think Rare Candy has had a couple technical difficulties. It's not overly surprising for a new platform, but I'm very biased. I'm like eBay is the place to be. I'm looking at their rates right now. I think their rates are generally better than Heritage or Golden, maybe in the same vicinity as PWCC, but they're not quite Ketchum All Collectibles eBay Vault consignment rates. I will say that.
Plug it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know what you're saying. I mean, the collection they bought from Japan, I will be shocked if we see another one on that same level with the sheer amount of product that they got. I really don't know if that's really like a once in a lifetime buy, from my opinion, whoever they got this from. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know who their buyers are now. I don't know how their sourcing looks, but I was kind of catching up on chat and I saw you saying like the collection may run out. I could see that. That's kind of the moonshot. Let's get all this interest and then get regular products in and get regular people coming in, downloading the app. And I think they're doing everything they can. But yeah, when you start looking at large auction houses like a PWCC or a Golden or a Heritage, there's so much variety of things to buy. And I think that's the biggest thing that, they may miss, unfortunately, because when you only focus on the Pokemon market, you're missing out on such a large, significant buyer pool. Because how many of these guys come in, these big sports guys, they're looking around and they're like, I'm bored looking at these. I'm going to look at the Pokemon section. Okay, now I'm going to start buying. Like you get repeat buyers and you get them interested in other categories of things, and especially Heritage. I mean, they've got coins, video games, comics, like every week it's a different theme. Or you just go just for Pokemon, but that's available everywhere. So that's kind of the hard part and where I would kind of put my opinion out there when it comes to Rare Candy. I think they're doing it right, but I don't think there's enough people with big enough wallets to consistently keep their platform going consistently. I think they should just double down and say, hey, we only sell the rarest of the rare, the most high-end stuff, and just keep that niche, because I don't see mass market adopting Rare Candy when, like Dan said, you got eBay and all these other alternatives.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, yeah, sustainability seems like it'll be the long-term test for them, especially given the competitors.
Yeah, I just don't understand why people would sell on like these other, I don't know, like if you have a card of that caliber and that price point, I don't know why you would be selling it on anywhere other than eBay, right? Like you have leverage with eBay. You can be like, hey, I'm going to sell a card that's, you know, of this historical significance, it's probably going to go for around this price point, and you can sort of like work on fees there and things like that. But you just got so many more eyes looking at eBay than like an alt or a rare candy or things like that. So I don't really understand. I mean, me as like a business, I look at a lot of those platforms as just buying opportunities. PWCC, same thing, right? Because you can just go on there, buy stuff. There's just less eyes on it. It's already graded, turn around, list it on eBay, and sell it for full market. So, like, yeah, just especially cards like that. It's like, why are you selling them somewhere where you're not going to get the max amount of eyes? Like, I understand Leonhardt obviously like has big sway in the community and things like that, but ultimately eBay is just king when it comes to that. So if it were me and I had a 6-figure card, yeah, I would just make it happen on eBay. Even if I had to pay slightly higher fees, I think it would just probably go for more. You get more eyes on it. So that's just my take.
Well, and one thing a lot of people don't even really touch on too, which I think was kind of, we were all up in the air about, the authentication through eBay is actually pretty amazing that they do that. And I think we take that for granted a lot of the time. It's like, you know, you buy $500, $600, $700, $800 card raw, sometimes slab, but primarily raw. It's like they're going to authenticate it and you're going to know it's actually legit. To my knowledge, no other service does that for you. You just kind of roll the dice and, you know, hope PSA doesn't come back and go not gradable, or, you know, whatever it is. So I think long-term, that was probably one of the biggest things that they put money into that really will keep them. I mean, not that they needed it for cards, but like for the card market to stay interested, I think that's probably one of the biggest things they did to attract new money into buying cards and even sneakers. They do it for sneakers as well, because I bought it on that and they authenticate those. If you've ever seen any of the viral videos, people are like smelling the glue and they're like, what are these people doing? It's like, no, that's how they authenticate this stuff. Yeah, I think it's just hard. It's literally a David and Goliath. And I feel like it's more beneficial to them to focus on a niche versus mass market adoption, because, I mean, to even say there's enough to go around, like, I just don't even believe that, because I think most people already have an established marketplace that they're buying these items through, like you said. Let's see here. So class at 12. Anyone concerned about the health of flipping modern? This is kind of funny with Collecticon just happening and coming up. Moonbaron going for under 800 in recent sales. I'm going to say one opinion. Not at all, but I'll let anybody else take that if you have a differing opinion.
I just sent a bunch of raging surf off to PSA today, so no, not at all. Pokemon continues to come out with great products that people are enjoying. 151's doing really well in English. Yeah, Celebrations, Charizard's still selling for like $190, $200. So
crazy.
No, not at all. I mean, when prices of graded come down, usually prices of raw drop a little bit too. I mean, eventually the margin compresses completely or pretty close to completely after fees and shipping, but there's just so many options right now that no, I mean, I want to say Celebrations Charizard's pop like 15,000, still selling for like $70 raw, still selling for $200 in a PSA 10. So no, not really. In fact, I actually think there are like certain modern cards that are pretty cheap and could potentially go up in the future. I think right now people are just broke. They're trying to sell stuff to get money for the holidays, but come tax season, I don't know. There's certain cards that are harder to grade than people expect of really popular Pokemon, and I could see them doing pretty well over time. So that's just my take personally.
I'm generally pretty bearish on flipping modern singles, but it's not my wheelhouse, and so there's a little bit of bias there. I think like when it's something new and popular and you're early to market, that makes sense why things would be more popular and perform well. The sustainability piece is something that I think is yet to be determined for a lot of the stuff, since the last few years have been such a irrational market and something that unlike what traditionally we've seen. But like I said, definitely not my area of expertise.
I was going to joke, what is Pokemon Classics? Think of the modern plays and the modern flipping plays. But yeah, class of 12, I think what you're saying is like, hey, Moonbreon went under 800. Like, are we in a downturn? and this is just my take, like kind of understanding and really dabbling into modern cards, alt arts, things like that, is it seems that prices fluctuate a lot more with like new shiny interests. So from what I've noticed is like newer sets come out, newer chase cards, new set, newer chase cards. Like you're seeing those cards, like they stabilize to a little bit more, I guess I would say. I was never one that was bullish on Moonbreon being like $2,000 forever. Like I just never thought that was going to be the case. But I think that with modern product, like people are really, and again, this is me talking like my boomer mentality. Like when we were in like, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, like a new set came out, that's all we thought about. It's almost like the previous set like completely left our brain. And I think we're in that. A lot of these people that have been in for maybe a year or really have gotten in recently, they're like, oh, this is so cool. And then the new thing comes out and they're like, this is cool. And that's what they buy. So I mean, even a Moonbreon going for $800 still kind of blows my mind as someone who primarily had vintage for like the majority of the time I've been in this hobby. I don't think you have anything to worry about. I think modern, especially if you watch any of the CollectCon recaps and stuff like that, I mean, people are printing at these shows because that's what people are interested in. I think alt arts have been a home run for Pokemon. I think that's like, I don't want to say it rivals Gold Stars, but interest-wise, it's probably pretty similar. I mean, it's pretty crazy to see how much liquidity that people have seen with these. So yeah, I don't think that we have any. I don't think there's any concern right now when it comes to flipping modern at the moment.
I mean, people are all down on like Scarlet Violet base, right? When Miriam was like a $65 card, it was selling for $300, $250 in a PSA 10. Now it's a $32 card, is low list on TCG Player, and low list on eBay is $135 in a PSA 10. So you're still like 3-4x in your money after fees and shipping. So just because like one card is maybe down 15-20%, I wouldn't say that that's sort of like a cascading effect across the entire market. And like I said, that when the graded price drops, the raw price tends to drop a little bit as well, because the supplies on both sort of works in tandem. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of margin built in there, right? So I would be more worried if margin in general just starts disappearing. But on these chase cards, people want them and they're paying for them. So
I think there's a good point there too, that like some of the really high popularity chase cards have reached a certain level of transcendence where they are more than just, you know, the modern card. Like there's so much meme worthy content and so much history now to Moonbreon that I think even just that alone will sustain that card at least to some degree over any other type of card from the Sword and Shield era. So I think that plays a role, as well as just like how prevalent is the card within the minds of the collectors out there. And that one I think has transcended.
Which kind of goes into kind of one of the final-ish topics, I guess, beyond chat questions, which you guys can still chat. You guys can still drop some stuff. I'll definitely, get some stuff answered here.
Wait, can I say one last thing on this too?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this too, and like a lot of people are like, oh, well, like, this isn't how like other hobbies work or anything like that, but it absolutely is how other hobbies work. If you look at sports cards, 95% of the volume is modern. If you look at comics, what's trending, what's selling, it's modern. People are doing the same exact things in all of these other hobbies that they're doing in Pokemon. So Pokemon is not a unicorn. Same thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like what sells in Yu-Gi-Oh! Primarily, what's most of the volume? Modern chase cards. You post like a vintage LOB first edition, you're going to sit on that card for 6 to 9 months. You post a 25th anniversary reprint in a PSA 10 appropriately priced, it's going to sell in 2 days. It's the same thing with comics. If it's got Spider-Gwen on it, it's a 9.8, which all of the modern comics are going to grade. It's drawn by Peach Momoko, it's going to sell. If you grade some Stan Lee auto comic from 1975, you're going to sit on it for 9 months. So this idea that like Pokemon is just in this weird space right now and the market just doesn't know what it's doing, it's just not true. If you look at all these other hobbies, the exact same thing is happening. Video games, same thing. People grade Zelda, Mario, Pokemon, anything right when it comes out. They buy it off a Walmart shelf, put it in a CGC or Wata case, it sells for a premium. So this is just how these hobbies operate. The vintage side of things are generally a little bit more high end, and the market is less broad. On like the modern stuff, the market is extremely broad. A lot of things have value. You look at vintage comic books, not all vintage comic books have value. Very few vintage comic books have value, usually only key issues. It's the same thing in Pokemon. Not everything has value just because it's vintage. Very few things have value. Whereas in modern, a lot of stuff has value. So I don't know. Like, I just think that, people sometimes get that confused. But if you just look at the data, if you look at what's selling, that's just not the case. So
I feel like you framed the argument in a different way than I've ever heard it played out in these spaces, where you mentioned volume, or like a larger number of volume or a larger quantity of volume as in modern. And I think that's a statement that I'd be more inclined to agree with. And that makes sense because it's generally more affordable. It's hitting a much larger demographic, a demographic that's also the younger intended target audience. Usually how I see that argument framed is in terms of like long-term value and appreciation. And that's where I would generally say, well, you look at other hobbies and often those really high-end items, the ones that are truly like the chase items of collectors, happen to be the vintage ones that aren't mass produced. Like they still have to have those elements of rarity and the scarcity and the popularity as well, because you're not going to have like a fossil muck ever compete with something like an Umbreon, regardless of what generation it's from, just due to the popularity. That's usually how I've seen that argument framed. But I kind of like how you framed it because it adds a different dynamic, and maybe just the definition change is something that is the catching point for a lot of people.
And don't get me wrong, I mean, like WotC, Japanese old back hollows, like that stuff still sells pretty good. But I would say the value on a lot of that stuff is more like collector value. Like if you tried to purely run a business just off of vintage cards, like you're going to get wrecked and you're going to have a hard time because the premium isn't there. Like the cards are harder to source. They're more expensive to source. They're harder to grade, and nines usually you're breaking even or losing money on, So I would say as like a collector or somebody, like you said, that is more interested in the long-term prospects or things like that, that's a good place to potentially be buying or putting your money, right? Because if the pack that the card comes out of is $300-$400, but you can buy a PSA 9, which is a fairly optimal grade for those vintage sets, you can buy a PSA 9 for $60. That's pretty good value, right? So I definitely agree with you on that point for sure.
Yeah, it's just really interesting when you think of that, because Retro, you mentioned vintage cards, really for people to especially find some of those like low pop rare cards, like they're very educated in the hobby, and 9 times out of 10 they're probably very educated in buying and selling. So price wise, you're going to go back and forth, right? They're going to negotiate. They're going to try and DM you. Hopefully not on eBay. I know, Dan, you felt that pain before. They're like, hey, can I DM you on Instagram, Facebook? They go all over the place. But, they're going to try and like work out a better price. From my experience, at least from the very few modern cards that I've bought and sold, I list it, and within 1 to 2 days, it's like I've had people just straight up bid the card. And I've had offers available. Like they won't even send me an offer that I probably would have accepted. So yeah, liquidity on modern product, they're just, I want the card. It's a PSA 10. This is priced accordingly. I'm buying it. But I'm curious, Dan, on your end. I mean, I know you sell a good portion of kind of all of the things, your vintage, your modern, all of that. I mean, do you see, I know it's probably hard to tell with the sheer amount of items that you do buy and sell, but or sell specifically. On the vintage side, like, do you notice slower sales on that versus modern product in the same price points?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if I take, let's take the Moonbreon. If I low list a Moonbreon, which if recent auctions are going for like high 7, sounds like low list is probably around 800. If I list the Moonbreon tonight for $7.99 and that's low list, I will expect that to be sold within 2 or 3 days. If I list like a PSA 10 Neo Revelation, I'm trying to think what card would be exactly in that vicinity. Like there are PSA 9 base set first edition hollows that I have in that vicinity that have not sold. There are PSA 10 first edition Neo Revelation. Like, I mean, there's a lot of PSA 10s that are less than that price point Neo Revelation Delibird for like $400, Neo first or Fossil First Edition Muck for like $350, $400. Those sit and sit and sit. And I get people to send messages. Is there a swirl? Is there this? Is there that? Moonbryon, it's just boom. Like liquidity.
Is it a Moonbryon? Check. Yeah.
And it's like a lot of the net capital removers in the space, myself included, have interests aligned together on modern. Pokemon doesn't make money when you sell a Muck. Pokemon doesn't firsthand make money when you sell a Moonbryon, but when you sell like a Giratina Altart, they just recently reprinted Lost Origin, and Giratina Altart being a valuable, desirable card, that makes eBay money, that makes PWCC money, that makes everyone money in the space. That makes everyone money in the space. So it's like, I don't even think it has to be done that much. It just naturally flows, newer, flashier, shinier in my face. I want to buy it. But if and when anyone made a concerted effort to pump anything, it would be like the newest stuff, because that is more that is more repeatable too. Like if I want to go and source Moonbryons, I bought a couple at Charlotte Collecticon. I wasn't buying any PSA 10 quality first edition hollows. They're not out there like that. They're not that accessible. But Altarts left and right, binders all over the place. So yeah, that's a big part of it. But modern isn't always modern, right? Modern eventually ages, and what will stand out and what won't, and all that blah blah blah.
Well, and look at this like recent sort of, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago now, but the little Japanese boom that we had. If you were holding a bunch of like hold back Japanese promos or just even Japanese set hollows, you didn't see any sort of gain. But if you had, you know, anything Sun and Moon era forward, full art waifus, Pikachu promos, things like that, you 2, 3, 5x your money. You know what I'm saying? So it's I don't know, like it's tough for the vintage investors right now, because like the prices just haven't really trended in their favor. But again, I think it's more of like what has value to you. Do you value this card that's like really easy to grade and you can probably get in the future for $500, or do you value this card that there's, you know, only X amount of the pop report is increasing, much slower, tougher to get. It just comes down to the individual buyer. But, you know, same thing as Dan was saying, like, dude, I have a McDonald's Pikachu with the most movie swirl of all time right now, and I'm low list, even below people that have it listed without a swirl, and that card's probably going to sit for like a month or two, versus like I just had some, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh 25th anniversary stuff. That shit sold in a day. And I have a Moonbryon off right now. I'll get that back. That'll probably sell. I'll get that back in like a month, and that'll probably sell before the McDonald's e-reader Pikachu with the craziest swirl you've ever seen. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, if I had to buy one, I'm buying the McDonald's Pikachu all day. But like, I can't put my opinion onto the market and say that the market is wrong, right? Like, I see more value in the e-reader Pikachu, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? So it has been a little bit surprising, to be honest, but I think a lot of it too is people still have maybe got burnt a little bit because vintage went so crazy over the boom and then has retraced. And I think a lot of people maybe thought that it was rarer than it is, right? Because it's different when a card that you know there's going to be a ton of has a massive pop report, right? Like Shiny Charizard VMAX, Celebrations Charizard, something like that. You already know there's going to be thousands and thousands of that card. But when people saw these cards during the boom that were pop like 10, pop 15, pop 20, whatever, even if they double and go to pop 40, you've seen these cards come down crazy in value. Like Melodic EX is a perfect example. Like that card was super low pop for a long time, very expensive, and people were paying crazy premiums for it. But as soon as like 5 got added to the pop report, it started dropping 40, 60%. And so even though it's not, you know, like up to 100 pop, it's still like pop 40 or something like that. It's still a doubling. And so I think people had it in their mind that this stuff was a lot rarer and harder to get in 10 than, you know what I'm saying? So that might be part of it too. Yeah, sorry for the rant, but
I think a lot of those things take years and potentially even decades to bear themselves out. short term, days, weeks, months. It's all just hype, stonking, FOMO. It's all about the newest. But I could be wrong here. But if I had to park X amount of dollars, am I going to do it in Celebrations Charizards, or am I going to do it in like PSA 9 first edition WotC Hollows that are the same price? Like, just, and the margins going down. The margins going down wasn't inevitable, in my opinion. Like, the margins got higher than I ever expected, and I arbitraged them as much as I could, and a lot of people did too. I mean, I've not made a video or a live stream in the past year, I don't think, without mentioning Celebrations Charizards. And I mean, it blows my mind that there's still, I think Raw's down to 60 now. Actually, I literally just bought 30 more the other night, or 25 more the other night for like 60 a pop, instead of last time I bought them was at like 75 a pop, because 10s are still going for 170 to 200. And I know that I can grade them at 60, 70% 10 rate. It can't be sustainable. Either the raw gem mint candidates will dry up, or the price will go down, or both will happen to some extent. Because with the vintage, I can't buy raw mint gem mint quality mucks. Like PSA 9 muck is what?
Yeah.
60, 80 bucks. PSA 10 is 300, 400. I can't buy those anywhere. I can go on TCG Player right now and buy 30 Charizards, and 20 of them, 15 to 20 of them will 10.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also like, and that's one thing I was going to bring up as well. Like, when you think about the sheer amount of modern being graded at the moment, because I don't know if this is just my, like, you know, inner tinfoil hat for this, but I'm like, a lot of the people that I've seen doing grading returns, like large numbers of cards, the vintage is getting absolutely wrecked. And I've been one of those people. And it makes me think, like, is it a combination of people, like, graders are so used to grading modern product that, like, when they look at vintage cards, they're like, no way. Like, this is instant 8, instant 7. Like, what are we looking at here? It just seems, you know, and I know that grading, well, I don't want to call them grading standards because I don't think it's company level. I think it's just subjective opinion, obviously. Did they have their coffee this morning? But it just seems like if you're so used to grading modern printed, really good quality product, consistent quality product, is that affecting the way that vintage is being graded? In addition to, like Dan said, the supply of like actual near mint copies. Like, I don't think we'll ever be in at least in our lifetime, maybe in our lifetime, the tail end, a situation where like all the mint copies are graded, all the near mint copies are graded. Like, there's still boxes to open, etc. But it is one thing, like, I wonder if a lot of people grading vintage have just been wrecked, you know, because vintage is a gamble. Like you said, you can buy, I forget how many you said that you got at $60, but it's like, you know, you take that amount of money and drop that into like 5 vintage cards that you think are a 9 or a 10. Like, you're like, hey, this could 10 is probably going to 9. I'll make money. And then it comes back at 7.
8, 7, 8.
Yeah. 8, or it comes back at 8. And that happens so much more often, at least recently, from what I've seen, than what it has like a year or 2 years ago, from my experience. So it also makes me think, like, you know, Retro, you talked about like mitigating risk, like with the boxes, like maybe that's what people are doing now. True vintage collectors, buyers and sellers, like they're just mitigating the risk at this point. They're like, if I'm buying something and there's a chance I'm going to sell it, why would I dump so much open capital into a maybe PSA 8 that's going to sit for months versus me going in and buying like this guaranteed quality? I did see this in your recent.
I pulled that out of a pack, a $500 pack, mind you.
Is that a 7?
It's a 7.
It is.
Yeah.
I usually open one pack to verify a box to make sure it's legitimate. I usually open the lightest heavy. And this was what I pulled out of a $500-$600 pack.
Do you agree with the grade? Do you see why they gave it a 7?
I expected an 8 or a 9, to be honest. I didn't look too closely. I don't know if it's
like the
something.
front silvering.
Actually, I did not look at it this closely until just now. It has like a roller line down the back, like an impression.
Weird.
I don't know if it I don't pre-grade my cards substantially usually. Like it might have had that right out of the pack. It definitely could have had it. But Here's a stack of PSA 10 Celebrations Charizards from the same return.
That would actually be a great thumbnail of Dan holding Celebrations Charizard 10 stack and then like PSA 8 WotC. And that's the hard part, coming from somebody who graded a lot of vintage. I mean, almost exclusively vintage for the last like 2 or 3 years until recently, really grading some modern stuff. Yeah, there you go. There's your thumbnail.
$500 got me 1 PSA 7 Clefable fresh from a pack, or it got me 8 Celebrations Charizards that 10
that are going to triple your money just about, like 2.5x.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing too with grading, and with CGC doing what they did. Like it's almost hard to kind of stomach the gamble if you're running this as a business, if you're actually buying and selling, which I think in our niche of the niche, which we have 64 people watching. By the way, chat, I think we have up to 70. Thank you guys all for watching this. I know this is very rabbit hole on a Wednesday night, but yeah, when it comes to buying and selling, which I think a lot of people do, it's hard to say, like, maybe I've got $300 to spend this week or $200 to spend this week. What are you going to do? Are you going to throw all your eggs in one basket and hope PSA doesn't just bend you over? And then you have to like ship off to CGC or like, whatever you're doing. Or like Dan just showed, like, do you go for the probably guaranteed 10? I ran into that with Dragon Ball. I got into Dragon Ball for a good while and put a lot of my money into that versus Pokemon because of the gem mint rate. It was just like a 70-80% gem rate. And I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. I really like the cards and they're always going to grade well. Yeah, the grading aspect of it, I think, has had a huge, I think, motivation for people to buy more modern, which I think also increases the demand. I don't even think it's just newer collectors. I think it's even vintage collectors saying, yeah, I think I'm going to go buy some Moonbryons, or I think I'm just going to open these boxes because these things are going to, they're going to sell and they're going to grade well.
Well, that's why I was saying earlier too that the volume and the liquidity makes sense. Like, I haven't heard the argument framed in that way, but I think by the same token, at least in my perspective, that's further evidence of why I would expect the actually rare vintage stuff to appreciate better comparatively over a longer period of time. So if we went back to one of the Celebrations Charizards, much better place to park some money for a quick flip in the short term. If it were between like the $200 that would cost versus, I don't know how much PSA 9 version of Clefable would be, probably in that ballpark, maybe a little bit more. But if you ask me in like 5 years, which one is going to be more expensive, I would think it's going to be the Clefable, but it's anybody's guess, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Like as a collector, what you like is paramount, and what you value, like that's it, right? As a business though, like it can't just be what you like. And I've fallen into that trap before, to where I see value in a lot of things that are really rare, vintage, hard release promos, whatever. Like e-lotteries, for instance, are like a perfect example. Those are Japanese exclusive holos. They had a limited release, all that sort of stuff. They've traded down like 20% over the past year, and it's Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur. You know what I'm saying? Versus you throw a dart at a board covered with like all the Sun and Moon waifus, and those are up like 2-3x. So it's tough because you see such value in these other things, but that the market doesn't really reflect that. And again, over time that might change. But as a business, like you can't really impose your opinions on the market, because you'll just set yourself up for failure. And again, like I've fallen into that trap before, to where I'm like, man, this just seems so cheap. Like this is crazy. And because I'm maybe not as long-term in my time horizon, it just personally doesn't make sense for me. But I do think that over the long term, certain important things that are vintage and high grade are going to do well, because that's what's happened in other hobbies. But we'll see what happens, I guess.
Well, I remember the video you put out. It's been a while. It's unlisted, so sorry guys, you can't go back to this classic retro video. But I remember you talking about like missing the forest for the trees, and it was almost like an aha for you with like modern Pokemon, and like talking about that same subject of like being distracted by someone so ingrained and understanding like the rarity, the collectability, how hard it was to get this, the conditional grade being really, really difficult to achieve. And then realizing like the vast majority of people buying products are like, they don't even think about that. Like, they're just like, whatever, man, I want my Moonbreon. Like, I want my Charizard.
100%. I mean, you can, like I do this with my girlfriend sometimes. Like, I'll pull 2 cards out, and one of them's like a vintage Grail, and one of them's like a modern card, and I'll just be like, which one do you like more? Because she has no idea which one's more valuable. She probably doesn't even, I mean, she could probably tell that the half art is, older than the full art kind of thing. But other than that, like, she has no, and I think the reason that we assign value to, like, me personally, like, I've been into Pokemon forever or whatever, but like 3 years ago, I didn't know any of the stuff that I know now, right? None of this shit had any sort of value to me. The only reason that like e-lotteries even have any sort of value to me is because of what I know about them. But if you take somebody that doesn't know anything and show them 2 options, you know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with music, right? Like, you got your underground hip hop heads and you got your people that listen to top 40, right? Like, it's the same exact thing. And I feel like the people that assign value to like the vintage WotC cards and rare Japanese promos are the people that are really deep in it and are willing to put in the research and the time to understand why these things are rare. But that's just not the majority of any market in anything. Music, collectibles, whatever. The majority of people are pretty surface level. So, yeah.
I will say, though, and Matt touched on this, the same reason that Celebrations Charizard is so good to flip in the short term is the reason that it won't age well, in my opinion. And I think that's a shared opinion. The fact that I can go buy tons of them raw gem mint for 60, 70, 80 bucks in mass quantity. That's the reason. Pop 10,000. I just looked it up since we were talking about it. PSA 9 first edition Jungle Clefable. $200, buy it now. I mean, Celebrations Charizard is a little bit lower than that, but I did just sell one the other day for like $230. And I know that if I listed 10 Celebrations Charizards at $200 versus 10 Clefables, one, I can't even source 10 Clefables, but if I had them and I listed them, the amount that would be gone within a month, all the Charizards would probably be gone. I'd probably have all the Clefables. That's the reason that the Clefables, I think, in my opinion, not financial advice, all that stuff, that's the reason that will age better. Because, again, 20 years from now, Charizard Celebrations is like what? The 17th out of 52 Charizard reprints? I mean, goodbye Celebrations Charizard. We got the classic collection Charizard.
Yeah, we got the classics now. Yeah. Exactly. Well, speaking of the classics collection, this was a good question from Andrea. They said, do you guys tend to be the first to market, or do you wait for the market to settle a bit for a card after release? So to take this from my side, and Retro is probably on the same thing as this, I don't have distribution. There's no point, if it's a set card, for me to even attempt it, because people who have distributors are going to get the product at least a week before I do. So like there's literally not a physical chance for me to be able to grade it and be first to market. By the time I get my card back, which I'm not going to like walk through, I'm not going to like super express a card. Like, I've just never been that bullish on anything that's come out. There's no point in for me trying. That's why it's funny when like sometimes you'll see like release week happens, and then like a week later there's like multiple, or not multiple, but there's like a black label, multiple PSA 10s. It's like they didn't get it and like, oh, I'm going to do the good thing and like ship it on release day to PSA. Like, no, they got it, broke it down, shipped it off, and we're first to market. So that, I mean, when it comes to promos, that's also difficult because a lot of people get access to promos depending on where and when and how they release. So it would have to be a very specific type of card and type of release for me to even think that I had a chance to be able to do that. And I name dropped you, Retro. I don't know if you have a thought on that or if you're on the same boat.
Well, I would just say, like, you know, primarily what I do is Japanese. So generally Japanese sellers are always going to beat me to market by a little bit, but I'm pretty close on a lot of stuff, and you don't need to be like the first to market. You just need to be like first within a range. And I think that, you know, you can just do the math on the raw card, what grading is going to cost, what cards of that rarity that have similar sort of characteristics have sold for in the past, and then just kind of go from there. Like even if you're not the first to market, like there's still plenty of money to be made there on the singles, at least. On the sealed, a little more advantageous to be first to market, have distribution, things like that, because you can put up pre-sales before you've even, got your orders and things like that. And then obviously sort of have a interest-free loan by doing pre-sales and different things that people do like that. But on the cards, if you're buying good enough cards, like this whole race to the bottom thing that people have come up with is just like, I mean, dude, Celebrations. I mean, we talked so much about this card, but like that card is over a year old now. Every single time I go to a Collecticon or an in-person show, I've been sourcing the same Charizards for like a year and a half. Shiny Charizard VMAX, Shiny Charizard V, the rainbow one from Champions Path or whatever, and Celebrations Charizard, and there's still margin built in on all of those cards. And I bet you a year from now, there's going to be margins still built in on 151. The raw prices might have come down a little bit, and the graded prices have come down, but I bet you in a year, there's still margin on Mew from 151. There's still margin on Charizard, Erica, things like that. So the popular stuff tends to do better. The stuff that's more accessible to people, that's cheaper, your lower rarity cards that are $5, things like that, that everybody has access to, and there isn't a financial barrier to entry. There's a lot of people competing with you at those price points. That kind of stuff, the margin gets crunched. And you might get down to the points where you're only making like $1 or $2 after fees and shipping. But the higher end rarity, nice cards, popular Pokemon, popular waifu trainers, things like that. Generally, if you're buying well and not like timmying out on eBay, buying like the absolute top buy it now listing, like you're probably going to be okay. But what do you guys think, Classics and Dan?
I'll let you go first, Dan.
I think I actually was just looking while Retro was talking. The first couple Celebration Charizards went for over 1,000, and it wasn't just one. I remember Special Delivery Charizard firsthand because I was making that play like ground floor. I normally don't do it, but I think I sent some at 75 for Special Delivery Charizard. I sold mine at 675, and I remember PK talking about it. I think PK is the one that uses that race to the bottom all the time, and he talks about enjoying it, and I'm not a huge fan. I hate paying PSA $15 to grade cards, let alone 40, 75, 150. Like my mind is still calibrated towards the first several hundred, several thousand cards I graded pre-2021. I mean, the vast majority of what I graded was 750 special a couple years ago, whenever that was exactly. Almost every card I've graded was sub like $8, and it doesn't feel good paying 15, but the money's there, so I do it. I just recently sent some Umbreons at 40, or maybe 40, I think, not 75. So tomorrow I'm probably going to get my 10 Pikachu with felt hats, and if some of them look like guaranteed 10s, it's hard to shun the opportunity to pay 75 and get $500, $600, $700 for one of the first 10s that I have a pretty good idea is ultimately going to be a $200, $100, $50 PSA 10. Like it all comes down to how much they print it. If they reprint it, they put out that statement, whatever.
Do you think you'd even try for a black label in those?
I've been sending.
I know it's gone through your brain. Probably.
I've been sending a lot to BGS. Nagabas, I made that whole video that rubbed some people the wrong way about participation trophies at PSA and how Nagabas are going for high 30s, low 40s auctions. I've only graded 2 Nagaba black labels so far, but I sold an Eevee for 500, and I sold a Jolteon or something else for like 500, 600. And I haven't looked in a little while. But even if they're 100, if they're 200, 300, whatever they're at, it's absurd. So
Huge.
There's a chance if I have one that just looks immaculate, but more than grading onesie twosies with Beckett, I like grading 10 of each, 20 of each, because then I just feel more like the math is going to work in my favor, where I'm not trying to just get lucky. I'm trying to just get to a more positive EV play. Like, it might not pan out well. I still have 100 001 SVPs at Beckett, 100 in one submission. My thinking is that the black label rate is 20 to 25%. My couple last black labels I sold were $300. PSA 10s are like 50. If I'm able
I was going to
get,
joke that you probably have no idea where they're at in the submission process. You don't even know if they've arrived.
no
He's
idea
gonna
whatsoever.
tracker
Open right now.
No, I'm not a tracker checker. It doesn't get them back any quicker. I actually
BGS doesn't have a tracker
Yeah,
to check.
the good thing is BGS doesn't tell you anything. It's like, is it here? We don't know.
I don't know what it means, but in the past week, I've probably gotten 4 emails from BGS saying your cards are now in grading. I don't know when I sent those orders. I don't know what that means. They're doing new things. They're doing new things they never used to do. They do to some extent, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, someone who might be bringing black labels to market soon, but they definitely are better to submit to than they were historically. I will say that, and I probably shouldn't say it, but anyways.
No one in this chat is a buyer of your $300 black label SVP.
They're not a buyer, but they're gonna sub. They're gonna sub, and they're gonna compete with me
Oh,
on the
wait,
next
are
one.
you saying that maybe it's not smart to talk to your
Standards might have
YouTube
changed.
following about your business strategies? Is that what you're trying to say?
Hey man, it's too easy. I'm trying to have a little fun here. Come on.
Retro, this is the
Gotcha.
Cabal paywall at 2 hours in. We're really getting the inside scoop.
Okay.
here.
Looks like you got rated, Colt.
Did I? Where? Oh, red or blue. Nice. Thanks, Rob. That's awesome. He's a good dude. I'm trying to get him to move to Texas, actually. Welcome, everybody. So I'm going to go through a few more questions. Retro, I know you've got a dip soon, so definitely let me know. I don't want to keep you too long. Legend of Luke had a good question. Wherever he was. Let me see. So very broad, but I think this was during us talking modern and vintage. He obviously wants financial advice. I'm just kidding. Which, by the way, great Collecticon recap video. I think that was Legend of Luke, if I'm not mistaken.
You did one, yeah.
Really enjoyed that. Good quality. It wasn't like 4 pictures like Dan. You actually had video. It's great. But vintage undervalued now. We can make this kind of a fire round with this. I'll let someone else go first. I've kind of gone first on most of these questions. Classics. You're the vintage collector. Are you thinking it's undervalued at the moment?
Sure. I think there's still room, like downward pressure on the market as a whole for like everything across the board. But I think comparatively long term, it is to a degree. And we've seen like a similar situation play out in 2016. Did I cut out there?
Nope.
Okay. All right. We saw a similar situation play out in 2016, where after Pokemon Go was released, and there was that really large downturn of about 40%, and everybody's like, "That's it, it's over. There's no money to be made here." And then it was pretty steady growth from there for about 6 years until 2020 happened, and then it was like that instant vertical takeoff, and then subsequent really drastic correction again. So I think we might be approaching that same like level of saturation where there's all these extra graded cards on the market. Everybody's a little bit wary because of what the price volatility had looked like in the past. I would personally expect that we eventually get back to that place of just steady linear growth. Probably not going to be as attractive as some of the quick turn and burn flips that can be done with promotional products, with some of the sealed products, with some of the other higher grades of new released items. But that's at least the trajectory that I've seen in the time that I've been collecting, particularly vintage graded cards since 2011, is that slow, steady growth.
Yeah, it's a pretty broad question. So PWCC, they have indexes. Like one of them is called like the PWCC 500, and then they have another one called the PWCC 100. And you can look at them on their website, and they'll put them on a chart and put them the performance of these indexes against the S&P 500. And if you look, like, both have outperformed the S&P 500, especially since, the panorama and things like that. But if you look at the PWCC 500 versus the PWCC 100, the PWCC 100 has severely outperformed the 500. So when you take out the rest of those cards and just pick the top tier items, that's what's outperformed. If you look at like traditional financial markets, things like that, the companies that are like the highest value tend to trade at like higher PEs, right? Like you look at like utilities, they're going to trade at a lower PE than like a Facebook, Apple, things like that. So that's just kind of how it works. And I think that a lot of these higher end vintage cards are going to do the best, but not everything across vintage. Like, just because it's a base set holo, I don't think that means that you're going to see great appreciation on it. I think your most popular Pokemon are going to do best because whales, people that have the money to spend on these very rare, expensive types of items, they want the best. And if you look at other hobbies, if you look at the data that goes to all these other hobbies, comics, coins, all that sort of stuff, what tends to perform best is the top percentile of the hobby. So I think just because it's vintage doesn't necessarily mean it's going to do well. If I was going to invest, if I just had tons of money and I was only allowed to invest in Pokemon, I would be buying Japanese sealed specialty sets, and I would be buying like expensive, rare Japanese promos in high grade. But I wouldn't be buying like, well, I need a full base set of WotC. If I could only buy base set, I would probably sink all the money into Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur, and not even mess around with the other Pokemon. Because I just think that's where you're going to see best price appreciation based on the data that, and sort of market trends that other collectible markets have seen. So that's my take.
I actually answered, or I asked clarifying questions in chat to Luke, which I don't think were answered. But as always, context matters, blah, blah, blah. Dan is going to do his Dan things. What are your goals? So is vintage undervalued? What are your goals? Are you flipping? Vintage is overvalued. Modern is undervalued if you're flipping. Are you investing long-term? Have you paid off all your credit cards? Are your 401k matches maxed out? Like all the things that Dan says that people hate that Dan says, blah, blah, blah. But me personally, if I had to invest blindly, like not blindly, but if I had to buy something and hold for 40 years, I'm not doing any of that in cardboard personally. I'm doing all of that in tax advantage accounts in the S&P 500. I don't care, PWCC 100, PWCC 1000, whatever it is. I just believe in the productive capacity of humanity to continue advancing. Nintendo, like all these different companies, all these different IPs that generate and make this product go into those type of indices. And yeah, Pokemon can, and I'm not calling for this to happen, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, these things can cease to exist and humanity can largely be the same. Our lives would vastly change, but 99.9% of people would not be affected nearly whatsoever. Whereas traditional investments, all that stuff, like, yeah, that's, I'm not rich enough, essentially, is what I'm saying. Maybe someday I'll have the money to just park in these non-productive assets and just, I mean, hopefully I do. Maybe 10 years from now, I will be in a vastly different spot in my life. 20 years from now, I might have an empty nest, kids out of the house doing their own thing. I might be throwing 50 grand, 100 grand left and right. I might be buying back all the cards I sold these days, wishing I hadn't, at substantially increased prices. Who knows? But as of today, like, yeah, relative to ultra modern, if that's the only other thing you can choose, yes. Relative to ultra modern for short-term flipping, no. Relative to, like, if you just want to make money on your money, I think it's not undervalued. And I'm not even talking just traditional investments. I think other TCGs, other IPs, other avenues entirely. I think there are better opportunities if you're looking just investing strictly, grow my money, all else irrelevant.
Well, if you're limited, I mean, like everybody's limited on funds to some extent, right? Like, or, you know, everybody would just have every single card that they want. So if your primary goal is to build the collection of things that are going to be most difficult to replace or something like that, and you only have X amount of dollars, like, yeah, you might want to look at things like, you know, these vintage cards or whatever that are at the same prices as these other cards that you're probably going to be able to get in the future. But if you're looking at a vintage card that only comes up 2 or 3 times a year and it's the same price as this modern card over here, maybe that's a better buy for you, right? And then you don't have to worry about it. You have it locked down. It's in your collection. And there's just less chance that there's going to be thousands and thousands of copies and thousands of data points to compete against your purchase price, right? Like you might not necessarily make money on it, but it's going to be a lot harder to lock down Neo Discovery cards than it is to lock down Sword and Shield era cards in the future. So if you're trying to be smart with the capital that you do have and you care about getting those cards in your collection, you know, then I think you just have to weigh it against what your other options are and see how important it is to you. But
Dan, how do you feel about compound interest? Tell us your real thoughts.
I'm a big fan.
What about maxing credit cards and maximizing? No, I'm just kidding. For anybody in chat who's just joined, which by the way, let me go ahead and just like shout this out. Thanks so much, Red and Blue. I don't think my channel's ever been rated, so appreciate everybody joining. This is awesome. To answer Luke's question, is vintage undervalued, at least on my end? I'm going to echo what Dan said when it comes to that. It really does depend on your goals. Like if you're a collector, there's probably a little bit of opportunity, in my opinion, right now, probably for what you're looking. I mean, depending on what it is. I mean, vintage is such a broad term. Like if you're just looking for vintage set cards, you're not really concerned about conditional rarity when it comes to that. Yeah, you could get some steals, but I don't think that's any different than probably the last year. But if you're looking for, you know, high grade, pretty rare stuff, I think there's some opportunity there. But in my opinion, at least when it comes to set cards, they seem to have stabilized a little bit. Really, all I see talked about right now are vintage promos or really just Japanese exclusive promos. So if you're on the English side, maybe some of the more English promo guys can talk to that. I'm not really one of those people, but maybe there's some opportunity there. Japanese exclusive promos, they're doing pretty well right now, at least for the stuff that I follow. I follow like the Art Academy stuff and things like that. So it's hard for me to know because vintage is like, what do you know about the market? You know, like it's hard to know. But I think there's some deals in modern and vintage, but I think vintage right now specifically, you could probably find some deals if you're not as concerned about conditional rarity, is probably what I would say.
And Luke did clarify.
Wait, real quick. I got to roll out. So I just want to say thanks for having me on. I don't think I've ever been on a live with Peak or Classic. So it was really cool to be able to be on here with you guys. I'll throw the stream on in the car, but I got to skedaddle. So appreciate
Thanks so much for joining, man. Guys,
Nice
Retrospect has a YouTube channel, one of the GOATs in the hobby right now, in my opinion. So yeah, take it easy, man. Thanks for joining.
Yep. Have a good night.
Were you saying something, Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to drop Retro's channel in chat. So I just dropped that in chat if anyone wants to go subscribe. Luke did clarify if you want to grab it, Peak. Yeah, I meant relative to the modern stuff getting the most attention at the moment. 151 tag teams Van Gogh. Thinking more in terms of a collection piece, long-term hold. Collection piece, that's very subjective. Which one is undervalued? It depends on like what you enjoy more. So that one is entirely subjective. I can't touch it. Me personally, I think vintage is undervalued relative to modern as a collection piece. Solely collection, keep it forever, never sell it. As far as a long-term hold, I made a satirical video a few months ago about, I think I titled it "Vintage is Too Expensive." And if I had to just buy and hold, if I had to put 100K, 10K, whatever the number was, into Pokemon slabs and just hold it blindly, like if the only way I could do it was just buying slabs and then hold them for maximum value at the end, it would primarily be like WotC. It would be low print run promos, some Japanese, some English. It would be not Celebrations Charizard. It would not be almost anything listed on my eBay that is my own inventory. It would not be Black Labels. It would not be. But again, if I'm allowed the entire, like, Pokemon is just one thing. I enjoy it a lot. A lot of people enjoy it a lot. But if my sole goal is like capital appreciation, that's when I venture outside of the cardboard realm. So if you pigeonhole me to Pokemon only and you want to make money, well, then I'll pick a lot of like vintage slabs, a lot of trophy tier stuff. But if I'm allowed to just make money on anything, it's not going to be in cardboard generally.
Yeah, when it comes to relative to modern stuff, I mean, a collection piece, like undervalued, all depends on what you value it at. So that's kind of the, as Dan said, kind of a hard thing to put a number on. I mean, just saying if it's even possible to look objectively, like if you're taking like price history and things like that into consideration, it still comes down to really what you want to spend. I mean, that's really so it's a hard one to really answer with that. I mean, when you're talking about modern stuff getting the most attention, 151 Van Gogh, in my personal opinion, 151 and the Van Gogh promo, I really, really enjoy the Van Gogh promos. Like or the promo. I think that was a home run, awesome promo. I put that up with like Poncho Pikachu type stuff. Like I think it was really, really well done. Maybe not the release, but you know, the art and the card itself. 151 might go down as one of the best sets, best modern sets for sure. I would definitely pick it over Jungle if I'm thinking vintage. So I think that I've kind of changed my tune when it comes to vintage versus modern. I'm just looking at kind of the entirety of Pokemon. Some things I can't really compare, but you know, when it comes to exclusive promos and things like that, but when it comes to set cards, since you brought up 151, I don't know, man. Some of the new arts like really trump some of the vintage stuff for me. So for collection pieces, I think it depends on, you know, what camp you're in or if you're even in a camp. I used to be exclusively vintage camp, didn't buy modern, didn't even look at it, didn't care. Now I would say it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Like I'm a little bit more open-minded after seeing so much demand for it and saying like, well, let me look into this. And then I start looking at their arts. I'm like, these are pretty cool. Like I'm kind of getting bought into this again and feeling that feeling I felt, you know, in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I think right now it is probably the best time for anybody who is a collector because there's so many things that they can buy and there's so much value for them. I guess I say value, like a good buy and a good price point for them to buy stuff they like, if that makes sense. Hopefully one of us answered that question. I don't know if we did or not successfully, but let's see here. Classics, anything to add to that?
No, I think we answered that pretty well. I guess I would just say that from my perspective, like I'm primarily a collector first. And so the way I go about like looking at what I want to do with my money, at least in the Pokemon space, is going to be very different from somebody like Dan, who's primarily a business first, right? Is that a fair assessment?
Very, yeah.
Yeah. And so like when I'm buying stuff and I want to appreciate it, but I also want it to appreciate, that's the ultimate goal. But they're ordered in that sequence first, where it's really more about the enjoyment as the collector and then hoping that it has that back end appreciation as well. And so I think that plays a factor into the conversation as well as like what ultimately, and you guys said it better than I did, but what the goal is. And if you're just investing for the sole purpose of making money, there's probably better avenues to do that than cardboard of any kind. If you're enjoying it and you're trying to make some money in the process, well, then there's an innumerable number of ways to do that. Like you can do it through just about anything. There's opportunity in this hobby literally everywhere to make money. For me personally, this isn't my primary job. I'm a teacher. I'm very, very busy during the school year. Sometimes, like last week, we had our homecoming week and I was at school 70 hours. So I don't really want to do all the turn and burn like research, buyouts, be monitoring Pokemon Center, watching all these places to source cards. So when I do this, I want it to be for fun. And that's why I could be the type of person that'll make a video about driving on my motorcycle 4 hours across the state to buy something that maybe there's $100 of total value in once everything was said and done with flipping it. But because that was like something that was fun to me and it was a card that I appreciated on a personal level rather than something that would be much easier to do in mass quantities. So I think that's part of the conversation that just kind of emphasizes my perspective. And I don't think anything that I heard from anybody here has been bad advice by any means.
But not financial.
Not financial advice, besides compound interest, right, Dan?
Well, what I wanted to touch on, guys, I guess, we're a little over 2 hours. If you guys are good, maybe we can touch on one more topic and then maybe opens packs.
Yeah.
Works
for that. And then Landon drops a question. All right, Landon, I'll get you in a second. So when it comes to 151, this is just something I wrote down earlier, and I know we've talked it a lot, but with English and Japanese, it seems Japanese boxes are still selling like crazy. People are still buying them, even at elevated prices. What do you guys think value-wise? I mean, when it comes to Japanese or English, or do you think they're going to be equal? I don't think that at all, so I'd be definitely surprised if you guys did. But any thoughts on which one that you see being the long-term? And I'll kind of start with my opinion. I think Japanese is going to actually take it because of the Mew and the Mewtwo being chase cards and the reverse Master Balls. I think that definitely puts it a notch above what the English will be long term. But what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Me personally, like the business-minded answer, I actually just reached out to one of my Japanese contacts. I think he quoted me 50 boxes at 120 or 110, pretty high each. So my biggest thing at this point is like entry point. I'm buying English wholesale. I'm buying English. I can't say ground floor because you can look at Scarlet and Violet base. You can look at Paldea Evolved. They're going for cheaper than I paid on my wave 1 allocation. So I can't say it's like I'm getting in as cheap as possible, but I'm getting in as cheap as possible today. And I just like that aspect of English. So even if the answer relative to MSRP, growth-wise from MSRP, Japanese will likely beat English on a 5-year span, 10-year span, in my opinion. But my own access to these products at their prices relative to MSRP, English will win for me. Japanese will win for like the market overall, if that makes sense. Because I'm getting English at a 40% discount to MSRP, but I'm paying the same price as everybody else on Japanese, though I am still buying a little bit of Japanese.
Right.
I don't know how I can follow that up. I agree with both of you on that.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, Landon. Came in literally last minute, my man. What's the most underrated Gen 2 Pokemon? I gotta pull the list.
Yeah. I love
At first, I thought you're like favorite Gen 2, and I was like, that's easy. I was like, but then you're like underrated. We're going undervalued, overvalued, like whether it's Pokemon or like cards.
That is my favorite generation. So
yeah, Crystal was my favorite game. I'm trying to think like who I had in my squad in Crystal.
Like Umbreon is one of the best, but that's obviously not underrated.
Yeah, I love the legendaries. I love Entei, Raikou, Suicune. I love Ho.
But a legendary can't be underrated.
I know that's the thing. They're rated so high. I'm trying to find like a sleeper.
Going Meryl. Because it's Pokeblue.
Peekaboo?
Or Peekaboo. That's right. Peekaboo. Sorry, not Pokeblue. Yeah. Meryl is Peekaboo. So I'm going to say Meryl. That's my answer.
I feel like I'll come up with a better answer eventually, but what about Houndour?
I was literally going to say Houndoom. I love dogs, and I think Houndour are rated pretty high. I think Houndoom especially, but they're pretty solid though too. In the same vein, Tyranitar, like I think he's rated really high. He's not a legendary, but he's like the Dragonite of Gen 2, and I really love Dragonite. I really love T-Tar. It's hard to pick like a Houndoom or a T-Tar as underrated, but I think they're rated highly, but maybe not highly enough. Because I would take a T-Tar over like an Entei, personally. I would take him over some of the legendaries. A Suicune was always my favorite, probably because I bought Crystal version and he graced the cover of Crystal version. But I would take T-Tar. I wouldn't take Houndoom though over Entei and Raikou.
Dude, Suicide was the best.
Suicide, yeah, that's how I used to say it too.
You're the only other person that I've talked to that used to pronounce it that way. A lot of people saying Ampharos.
Yeah, I can see that.
Ampharos is pretty solid, yeah.
This totally wasn't the question, but I would say a Pokemon that's severely, well, it's not overrated at all. It's not on anybody's list, but can we all agree that like the original Porygon is better than Porygon 2?
For sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was a downgrade. That wasn't an evolution.
Yeah, too many smooth edges. You need those sharp polygons.
You know that meme where you have like the evolutionary line of humans, like, and then the one guy's like, "We messed up, turn around." It's that.
That's what it should be. For Alligator.
Retro says Hitmontop.
Oh, for Alligator, that's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised Ernie's not saying Slugma or Mad Cargo. I know he's a big fan of the slugs over there, the fire slugs.
Scizzor's another one that I would say is inferior to Scyther. Like
completely agree. That Pokemon should have never like had an evolution like ever.
Yeah, I think that's a back step too.
Porygon was cool in Pokemon Snap. Porygon's ego's hard. It's not crack. All right. The answer is obviously Shuckle.
Shuckle.
Disagree, Brandon.
That's okay.
Sudowoodo's up there. He's pretty good.
Is he?
Not really. Shout out Z&G Emporium.
Shuckle, yeah. I was just looking at the list. Somebody said Steelix.
Steelix is cool.
I could kind of see that.
He's fine. I wouldn't say underrated.
No, because he's had a lot of cards. And that's how I judge my Pokemon now, is if you have good cards. Well, cool. Well, I think everybody's just got their answers in, and I'll try to somebody come on, mods. Can we take care of this, please? Come on. Most underrated cryptid.
Bigfoot, easy.
Underrated? No way.
Mothman is the most overrated, easily.
Agreed.
Loch Ness Monster.
Yep. I'm gonna go with that.
Tree Fitty. Very expensive.
Oh man, look at Jake.
Deoxys.
Should we open some packs, guys?
Yeah. Ugh, I'm ready to lose more money.
You need to
go first though, because my battery has long since died on my overhead camera, so I'm gonna have to swap that out here.
Yeah, no worries. Well, Dan, see, it's only fitting that Jake has showed up because now you're opening more product. So it's like completely fitting.
I was just gonna say though, wait, isn't Deoxys Gen 3? Isn't he with Rayquaza? Yeah. Jake's on the wrong gen. Yeah. I'll let me get my camera switched. Or you said you want to go first?
No, I gotta switch out my camera battery.
Oh, okay.
I was telling these guys off stream before we started, but I usually have a different overhead camera, but I took the micro HDMI cable with me and I forgot to bring it back. So I rigged up like a full-on camcorder, and the fact that it's holding up here is pretty remarkable. It's heavy.
Dan, I have like 6% battery on the phone.
Uh-oh.
So let me not like
you want to go first?
My card camera. Yeah.
I
just opened an ETB. So let me do this thing real quick. All right. So we got a card cam. Thanks again for everybody. And don't forget to leave a like. Please sub if you haven't. It's always a good time. You will not see quantity content from me, but I would hope to call it quality. I don't know. You get to hear a bunch of Pokemon nerds talk about stuff. So who doesn't love that?
We got to see that Zard.
Dude, I need one. Again, red or blue. Actually, shout out him again for the raid. But I think I bought 5 or 6 booster bundles from him. He had them priced pretty well, and I got a Venusaur. And I got an Erica's Imitation, but not the alt art. It was brutal, but that was it. Oh, nice. The Bulbasaur.
There we
Nice.
go.
I'll take it.
We got to see a God pack.
Yeah, I literally just thought about that. I was like, where's the God pack? With the starters, at least. Dan, you're going to grade any of these packs? Are you doing that for specialty sets?
Sorry, I was muted and didn't realize it.
That's okay.
I've not
All energy.
graded modern packs in quite a while. I actually just got grades back on a vintage sub, and I got like 3 out of 36 or 38 10s, which was actually like good. I was actually
how many again?
3 out of 38, I think it was.
You got 10s? That's actually pretty solid.
My last year of subs, which I say a year of subs as if it's a lot, it was probably like 100-ish packs. I got 0 10s for a decent stretch. So literally getting like 3 10s was solid. Half of them were 9 or higher. So I think it was like,
That's really good.
Were those
Yeah, it was
vintage packs?
quite a few 8s. Yeah, it was
Another
Japanese
Hall of Energy.
Neo Genesis, and then it was English Fossil and English Base Unlimited. So I was pleasantly surprised to get over half my packs being like 9s and 10s.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hey Dan, Jake is using the stream as a public DM. So answer his question in Discord apparently. Which I love, Jake. I shot you a message earlier online, completely ignored. He's like, "Hey Dan, could you answer my question on the platform that Peek tried to message me?" I hear you.
I just sent him a shrug emoji because I don't know.
Grammar question for Jake. Is the in Discord modifying the question, or is it modifying to answer it here? So are you saying answer it in Discord or answer the question that was asked in Discord?
The English teacher comes out.
There we go.
Can't be ambiguous with our prepositional phrases now.
So Jesse says, will we ever see a Gen 2 specialty set like 151? I'm going to say absolutely no. I could see them doing something like a legendary set, like actually just doing only legendary Pokemon and then plus some, but I don't see them doing anything special like they did Gen 1. That's my opinion.
If they did, though, like a Johto set, I don't think 251 would hit as well. Like if they just did a set called Johto, that would be awesome.
I've said this for a long time now. I think that if they just did a Safari Zone theme set, I think that would be so cool.
That would be really cool.
Agreed.
Make Chansey, Pinsir, Kangaskhan, all the ones that were a huge pain
Yeah.
to catch. Like, what was your strategy? Did you go straight to the ball, or did you go for the bait? Did you go for the throw the rock?
Dude, I went straight for the ball. I wasn't messing around.
I'm
The
sure
bait occasionally, but I don't know.
Like back in the day, I had the strategy guides, but I don't think the strategy guides told you the optimal thing. I'm sure that as of today, there probably is an optimal strategy of like you just go straight for XYZ. I used to mix it up though with very, very mixed results. A lot of frustration trying to catch those ones.
Yeah, wasn't Scyther in there as well?
Scyther was one as well. Yep.
Yeah, I remember Chansey was the real one I wanted.
I didn't have a lot of patience for it as a kid, so I didn't spend a lot of time in the Safari Zone.
See, in yellow, I caught them all. Like I have somehow my battery, like once every year or two, I'll pop in my yellow. The battery is still working, the save battery. I still have all 151 in it. Someday that's gonna die, and I'll probably actually shed a tear. But yeah, I ground out the Safari Zone. I had the buddies with the link cables, with the worm lights in the car on the way home from
Dude,
camp.
the worm lights. That's how you
Yeah.
know you're a true OG. We had
Yeah.
those Game Boy worm lights.
It's amazing, like how amazing of an innovation it was when they backlit the screens on the Game Boys.
Yeah, so I didn't make it all the way up to a Nintendo DS, but I had a Kiwi Game Boy Color, and then I had an Indigo Game Boy Advance. Game Boy Advances weren't backlit, or maybe later ones were, but I had an Advance SP. I had a flame color, the red Game Boy Advance SP. That thing being backlit was so amazing. Legend of Luke says, and the magnifier. I was kitted out on my I think the Game Boy Color I only had the worm light, but the Game Boy Advance I had the worm light, I had the extended battery, I had the magnifier, I had like everything for that thing.
Did you have
the magnifier?
Did you have the one that turned the D-pad into like a joystick?
I probably had I didn't use them all, but I forget who, either my mom or my grandparents or maybe Santa Claus got me like a 48-piece accessory kit for the Game Boy Advance, and I had everything. It was nuts.
You're a legend.
I wish I still had that. I
love how you like. I just had the full Game Boy Advance kitted. It's like the hilarious description.
I had that thing maxed out. I don't have my original Game Boy Color anymore. I did buy back a sealed one and an open one, a sealed one and a raw one, I guess. I do have my original Game Boy Advance though, and my original SP.
And then old school Pokemon.
Well, that's pretty
show up on YouTube.
I have all my original games though too.
Same. The way you described modding your Game Boy Advance, though, is like a proud high schooler describing the customizations they got in their car.
Yeah, I wish
custom exhaust.
I need to look. I don't think I have any of the original mods for the Game Boy Advance, but I definitely have the original Game Boy Advance because it has an annoying scuff mark that honestly I could probably like Plastex it out or something. I could probably like buff it out, but I never tried.
Treat it like your card stand.
Yeah, I used them a lot. I was pretty rough with my Game Boy Color and my Game Boy Advance, but
last pack magic.
Get it.
We've had a Bulbasaur. That's been our pulls in the CTD.
Hold ETB. Yeah, that's rough.
I just got so many chances. I swear that's like my third or fourth chansey.
Just teasing with that 4-leaf clover too, like no luck for you.
Like you thought you were lucky.
Yeah.
Ouch. All right, classics. Dan, I'm gonna kick it over to you guys. I'm gonna get this binder collection to open because I can't leave out on that. That's
no.
Brutal.
So I'll say this: the Game Boy Advance that I was showing earlier was the fuchsia colored one, and I remember it was the only one available at the Kmart where I lived, and I wanted it when it came out. I already had like a game for it, and I was so self-conscious about buying the clear pink one because I was like, my friends are going to harass me so much, and I was like, you know what, screw it. I just want to be able to play these games, and I did. I took some heckling for it, but you know, I had the Game Boy Advance, and they didn't, so that's how it goes sometimes.
That's the way to go. I'm going to throw Brandon's comment up here because I completely 5,000% disagree with this take. Is not better than Lugia, even remotely.
See, I would put them on the same tier. I think that Lugia often gets ranked way above Ho-Oh, but I mean, Ho-Oh, episode 1. I mean, Ho-Oh is like the OG Gen 2 guy because he was seen in the anime like right out of the gate.
Did he get a movie though? No.
Well, actually, he sort of did. Did you see I Choose You?
I did not.
Okay. Ho features pretty prominently in I Choose You, which is like the remake of the original series, where you see Ash like pick up Charmander and Squirtle and his whole team with some modern updates.
Doesn't sound like a blockbuster like Lugia was in, so I'm out.
I love I Choose You.
G1T Landon wants a poll.
Hey,
Ho-Oh
look who it
versus
is.
Lugia.
Yo,
What's happening?
How's it
Jake,
going?
did you get your question answered?
He said he didn't know.
the solid answer.
Super helpful.
Jake was like, where do I get Celebrations Charizards on the cheap?
Oh, I know that. TCG player. No,
It's
he
like, I don't know, man. I don't
he
know.
was some deep level play questions that deeper than I go. Why go
Dude,
so
Jake, you got any 151 to open?
why go so deep when these are right here?
Why go so deep when these are right here? That is literally the
The margin,
definition of a
the
damn
margin on that
business right
card
there.
den is
You're
it's-
over here for me, so if you want to grab the pack. I don't know if it's the same for everybody else out there, but I'm trying to hook you up.
Grab it, Jake.
You've got it right.
He's handing it to you.
He's the other side.
not for my screen.
Oh, can I move you? Oh, nice. I don't have a pack.
Now
Right.
I'm above Dan, at least on my screen.
Right here. You got to hand it.
Oh hey.
Hey, Classic,
Thanks.
gave me the pack.
Yeah.
I got one.
Real sharing in the hobby.
Yep.
So Dan or Classics, who's opening?
You wanna go? I'm
All right,
scared.
I'll take
I'm
it.
opening this guy, so I got a few more packs. All
I'll take
let
it then.
me- Let's get him in here.
All right, we're gonna get the Moonbreon on. That's how this works, right? This modern.
We're gonna get the movie. The Black Label Moonbreon is in this pack, I guarantee it.
I feel this packet will either have the Moonbreon or the Celebrations Charizard.
There we go.
Maybe
Dan will
both.
buy it. 50% comps. He's ready. Cash in hand.
I kind of like the Ammonite artwork too. The little things in life. The Kadabra brought back once more after a long hiatus. Look at that. We got a Charizard EX.
Finally got a Zard. There
There
it
we
is.
go.
Do we get chat fire emojis?
I have not pulled that many Charizards in my life. Like, base set was long gone by the time I actually had money to be able to buy packs. And
I've pulled a first edition Dark Charizard.
that
That's
would,
the only Zard I've ever pulled.
I don't know if I have. I think I've probably pulled at least a couple non-hollow ones, but I feel like I would remember if I pulled a hollow Dark Charizard.
Brad, you've been cracking me up in this chat, dude. You've been saying some really funny stuff.
The chat. Oh,
we go.
where is Retro?
Oh,
Giovanni's Charisma.
Giovanni's Riz. Nice.
Bill's transfer.
double banger.
What is he transferring?
Money
Probably.
to your account.
We'll leave that one. We'll give that one to Dan. That seems like a Dan card. Making some adjustments to his stock portfolio.
I gotta say while he's doing that, this binder is very interesting.
Yeah, it's,
Real quick.
go
I
ahead.
didn't realize it was like really bendy. I thought it was a hard binder. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. I'm getting harassed a little bit in the comments for not being overly excited, but I'm not one of those people that freaks out when opening packs. It kind of annoys me, to be honest, the people that scream and go over the top, but I'm just appreciating the artwork here. Like this Ivysaur, it's oddly seductive. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm not sure like what Ivysaur is doing. It is.
Just looking back.
Got Electrode, water energy with a swirl. That's got to make it worth at least 50 times more, right?
Dude, you got to retire on the Black Label energies. That's the way to do it.
Seriously, though, that Ivysaur was giving me like Marilyn Monroe vibes.
Yeah, some of the artwork. It's hard for me to get into waifu cards too, because I'm like, what am I doing? I'm trying to think who it was, Dan. I think it was one of your live streams. They were like, rank your waifus, and then people were like, what? How old are these? And you were like, Misty's like 45 years old. So I can't remember what she said. You're like, it counts.
For anybody that played the game growing up, with base set Electabuzz was an absolute killer in the early meta. It was part of the Haymaker deck, which is probably the most popular deck from the early series, and actually made it through Jungle release, Fossil release, even into Team Rocket. Electabuzz was still being used.
Some good advice for you from chat.
React harder. Yeah.
Just say PokeRev.
Bro, it's a Spearow. How's that?
That might actually be the most intense
I like
reaction I've ever seen you have.
Yeah, I like this Moltres. This one's cool. Hey, there's a Dragonite.
There we
It's a
go.
nice art.
Yeah,
That's my favorite card from the set. Possibly.
very playful Dragonite.
It looks really good.
Yeah.
I love that card.
All right, I got one pack left.
Last pack magic.
Last
Let's
pack
do
magic. Hey, everybody, let's get some hearts and some fire in the chat for the Moonbrion.
Let's get some Venmo donations going for.
If you like what you're seeing on the chat, leave all sorts of super chats for Peek.
Can't turn them on yet. I'm not there.
Oh.
I think I'm like 80 away from a monetized channel because they changed it to 500.
That's true, they did.
Which
There
I
we go.
kind of feel
Everyone's
like.
sub.
What'd you say?
I said everyone's got a sub.
Oh, yeah.
Graveler. When you think of Pokemon with 4 arms, you think Machamp. There's also Graveler.
Yeah, I don't think of him.
Mr. Mime.
Of course.
Peek's favorite Pokemon.
He was summoned doing some weird shit as usual.
He's doing some acrobatics here.
We've had a rough go tonight.
Dude, this has been brutal, actually. Everyone's returning their 151 as we speak after the stream.
What's been the best pull of the night?
I think a Bulbasaur.
Yeah.
Or the
really?
Kangaskhan EX and the Venusaur EX.
Ninetales EX, maybe. Yeah.
Did you
No,
guys
there's not
open
been
some
much.
stuff before I came on?
Yeah, we did at the beginning of the stream. We ripped Dan went through like the biggest
These were my 9.
session.
My best
Yeah, we
hit was Poliwhirl.
Jeez.
Yeah, you got wrecked. Plastics might be taking it though.
I got a Psyduck.
I think the Zard
Card. The
probably helps
Mewtwo's
out a
pretty
lot.
cool.
Yeah, the Mewtwo's cool. I like that.
And then mine are again Bulbasaur, and then I don't even think I sleeve these EXs. Whoops.
I like the Dragonair from this set quite a bit.
The Dragonair does look sick. These were the EXs. So I'm not really a fan of the Kangaskhan, if I'm being honest. I think it's kind of lame. Looks a little too cartoonish for me.
Does
I don't
Kangaskhan have any
mind
like
it.
great cards?
Does Kangaskhan
Trophy
have any
Kang.
great cards?
Yeah.
Trophy King.
Trophy.
Yeah.
That's the only one that
Good
comes
answer.
I mean, it's only 6 figures.
It's a solid answer.
The Jungle one was very playable, but as far as like rarity and
I'm thinking of just like art wise, like
Yeah.
like set cards that like yeah. All right.
Kangaskhan does not have many cards in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think when you said that. I was like,
I'm trying
I
to
don't
think
even know if I've
beyond
seen more than probably
Jungle.
10, if that.
Like, I don't think it has another hollow in WotC, does it?
Beyond
think so.
Jungle. Yeah, it doesn't.
And then
I'm trying to think like maybe like because I like a lot of the Delta species, but I don't think there's a Kangaskhan Delta species either that I can remember.
in Flashfire, it has the Mega Secret.
Oh,
I don't think it has
the gold.
I don't think it
really
has
like that
anything
card
in-
that much though.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't think it
hollows.
has hollows in like Diamond and Pearl or Black and White. It probably does, but I can't think of any.
It got no level
Black
X,
and White
no
hollow
prime.
actually.
well, even non-hollows is like Gym Challenge. I think there's is a Blaine's Kangaskhan. or Brock's.
Oh,
There's an
Yeah.
uncommon one. I can't think of any others that are in WotC at all.
Yeah, I'm
There's
really bad with
there's got to be a
non-hollows.
Versa series one. Maybe that's the best looking one. I can't picture it though. Maybe there isn't one.
Yeah, I'm looking at so on pkmncards.com, it shows like every art of a given Pokemon. So after the jungle hollow, it doesn't have a hollow till fire red leaf green. And then it's hard to tell, but I don't think it has another hollow again, which it's not even really a hollow, but it has 4 hit cards in Flashfire. It has the EX, and then the full art, and then the Mega, and then the Mega Secret. But yeah, overall, like Kangaskhan, for being a Gen 1, very, very few cards across like the history of the whole TCG.
I just counted them all. 22 total. Hollow,
Yeah.
non-hollow.
Let's see. I think this reverse hollow one is good. What's this? What says this from? L3.
4 left for me. That's all I got. I'm not opening the UPC. I made a promise to Professor Oak. I would open it with him.
I have 9 more packs.
Let's do it.
I can rip more. I shouldn't, but I can.
My phone's at 1%. You go first, though. I'm probably gonna have to do this game anyway.
Okay.
That is true, Jesse, because like Tyranitar has like the best arts, like some of the very best arts early on. I don't know if it would be as cool, but Kangaskhan kind of got shafted with a lot of the arts, I think.
For sure.
Brandon, I think we'd all agree with this. That's honestly, in my opinion, one of the best art sets like of all time. Like I've looked through the common and uncommons of that set and been like, what? Like just goated set without a doubt.
Just thinking about it, like we talked about the Safari Zone earlier. Kangaskhan got fairly similar treatment to like Pinsir. I mean, Pinsir actually has a few less arts. It didn't have its first hollow after WotC until Hidden Legends. And then it had a Dragon Frontiers hollow as well, it looks like. But, I mean, Kangaskhan got like a Mega. It got a Secret Rare. Pinsir didn't get any of that love.
But is Pinsir really that cool, though?
No, that's exactly what I was about to say.
Fair.
He's pretty lame.
You have Scyther instead, so any spot where you could fill with Pinsir, you just insert Scyther.
Not everything can get the Magneton treatment that gets
Yeah.
hollows in basically every single set, and then multiple hollows in Skyridge. And
For Diglett. Right?
Yeah,
With Diglett
Magneton
falling
was
out.
everywhere.
Well, and then they even put Magnemite in as a hollow into Neo Discovery.
Yeah, that was weird.
because Magneton was supposed to be the favorite.
The chase. Is it Kangaskhan Cubone's mom? I have no idea.
Here we go. I'm gonna regret
Dan's
ripping these
ready to
9 packs
redeem.
probably.
You got this. You're making all your money back after your 2 Pokemon Classics collection you're going to get.
Oh, there we go.
Nice.
Blastoise.
We got the first EX for me.
Classic still has the Zard, so he's still technically taking it right now.
Hey, I mean, Blastoise beats Charizard in a battle. Come on.
Depends on who goes first.
Luke, is Kangaskhan undervalued?
Probably fairly valued, relatively speaking.
It's probably the most like middle of the road.
Man, these
Man.
All two Machamps.
back-to-back Machamps. Yeah, these are from random products. These are loose packs from like poster collections, binder collections. So, oof, this is getting rough.
That Chansey like haunted my last few packs.
You should trade that Chansey to Peak. I hear he needs one.
Yeah, I need my 7th one.
That's the
did.
one I pulled. That Chansey. That's the one I pulled with the Master Ball and for the Japanese.
Oh, really? That's sick.
Pretty awesome.
My $1.
I have a Charmeleon Master Ball.
Oh, there we go. Kangaskhan.
Look at
We're just
that.
talking about him.
I hear Luke will buy that.
Yeah.
High list.
2 packs left. Come on. I sold an ETB to my neighbor's friend. He pulled a Charizard alt art. There we go. We're pulling stuff at least. Last pack. I should have sold these 18 packs.
So what do you do with all this after opening it, Dan? Do you sell?
Oh, what do we get?
There you go.
That's awesome.
That's
That's
a
actually one of
20.
my favorite arts. And
That's a $20 card right there.
I hadn't pulled that one yet. Honestly,
$25.
these will probably all go to my kids. Like, maybe if the Pikachu is gradable, I'll sneak that one out and then grade it. But I try not to open much for myself these days because it generally goes the way that this just went.
I think it's because you have to save it for when Jake comes to visit. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know, if you don't have any product, he's not coming. All right, 4 packs. Let's see what we can do. Breast tats. Dan, did you 1v1 Rusty in basketball?
I didn't play any basketball this year. I was riding the 4-wheelers.
We needed the recording of you on the smaller, like a better version of that for the content.
Yeah, I
But do you
didn't end up
think
riding the 100cc one. I rode the 250 the whole time.
Moving up in the world.
Yeah.
See how long this 1% phone battery can last. Oh, there we go, guys.
There you go.
I'll take it.
Actually, I sold that for 50. I pulled that in the one I opened with my family. I snuck that out to pay for the ETB.
Man, what a savage.
$50. That's all it was worth to you, Dan.
This kid's like, oh man, this is
That's family
great. And he's
card.
like, yeah, Dad's gonna take that back.
They don't see any difference in value between the cards, so I'm like, I can't let them crumple this one up. They don't even like the trainers because they can't battle with them. Well, my son is the only one who battles with them.
Nice hit. That was out of the binder collection, guys. And I might be lagging a little bit on the phone because the phone's been at 1% for like 10 minutes. So, bullish on binder collections.
This is the one that you found near the exercise equipment, right?
That's right. With 2 dumbbells on it in the clearance. It wasn't even like the exercise section, the
okay.
clearance exercise section.
That's
Yeah,
a
Jake, I was telling him this binder collection. I was in Target and they had no 151. And then I was randomly in the very back of the store. And this was just sitting with a couple of clearance dumbbells sitting on top of it.
Yes,
Yeah,
Chansey.
dude.
Got it.
Seriously, I'm going to have to count these after this. There's so many.
We need to clip that Logan Paul audio from his break where he just screamed Chansey.
But instead of like do it in the context of like G.I. Joe, Chansey? Chansey?
Like when he did the very first box break, the first edition base box break, that I think was the first hollow that he pulled. And just like the intensity of the scream where he's like, Chansey!
Hold on a second.
Oh, did you lose your phone? He took the packs off stream, everybody.
Uh-oh.
All right, back.
Should we rip your Kickstarter box down?
No.
Like, you're not in his house. You can't ask these questions. You got to save this.
I actually just saw Josh. Josh picked up a couple Kickstarter first edition MetaZoo cards. I forget if they were 9s or 10s. I think they were 9s. Super cheap though, relative to
Jigglypuff.
what I would have expected.
Onyx.
Wait, hold on. Let me flip this around.
Big air balloon.
Yeah, that's the one I was hunting for. Beedrill.
Aren't we all?
Energy.
Air
Last pack.
balloon.
know
I
there's so
always
many
thought
random like,
that-
items.
I forget the name of it, but in of the card, but it's like the windmill card from which one? Obsidian, whatever. And Obsidian
whatever.
Flames. And it's such a funny card because you think you're gonna like maybe pull the gold Charizard. There's only like 3 of them, and then you pull the windmill over and over again.
Gyarados.
Great. It's so hard now. Just to show you guys the hit. Too hard to hold things up like this. But yes, Gyarados and Flareon. The nice blurry camera background. So really, overall, my hits were Bulbasaur, if you can even see it. There it is. Erica's Invitation. I'm actually pumped about that. It's funny. It came out of the binder collection, and that was the last thing I opened. And then EXs. And got a card.
That's all it's worth showing.
Yeah, I got the Magikarp.
That's true. That's true. Jake, do you have anything weird that you want to open just to be cool with us? What's the most random thing you've got? What's in the box? Hey, did you add that recliner? Is that a recent addition?
Probably a few months ago, 3-4 months ago, maybe more.
I've never noticed it.
Yeah. Big changes, big life changes.
I feel like I sit in here now. Flip through your binders.
Yeah, it's just like another place that just gets filled up with crap that I can't sit on.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like just another
Any
storage
flat
piece.
surface just gets filled.
Right.
And it's out of control.
Well, guys, anything else we want to open? I think that pretty much taps all of us out. We've been going for 3 hours exactly, just about. So if you guys are good to call it, I'm pretty much there.
I'm pretty much there too.
Yeah.
Unless Dan, you're like, I've got 17 boosters I'm ready to open here.
I got to
no,
go to
chat.
5 hours.
Dude,
Let's see
yeah.
one. I want to see one double crisis pack, Dan.
I'm not going to grab double crisis. No way.
I've never seen someone hit the those like the 2 hits. from that.
Kyogre,
Yeah.
Groudon.
They're
Yeah.
expensive. You could hit that.
You're going to hit it and you're going to eat it and you're going to lose money because it's like a $50 pack and those are probably $30 in PSA 8
I don't
or
think
something.
so. I think
Maybe
they're
not, I
really
don't know.
expensive.
I just low-key love the way Jake cannot like either end a stream or be around you without making you open sealed products.
Listen,
Like,
I want to
can't
see a
help it at
double
all.
crisis. Guys, how many times do you get to see double crisis pack openings? Super rare pack.
What about NFT exclusive MetaZoo Cryptid Nation 2nd edition?
Smart open right there.
NFT exclusive right there.
How do you feel about
Cards
that?
that are worth like $3. Like I think the Mothman are worth like $3 in the 2nd edition. $4.
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day. It was like NFTs, and it was like that meme where the guy's like, "No," and then it was like screenshots, and he was like, "I'm into it," because most of them are tanked. No, we're gonna call it, guys. Chat. I cannot believe we still have 50 people in here after 3 hours. I think most of you guys stayed the whole time. So appreciate you, chat. Thank you, guys. This was really fun. Pokemon Classics, Ketchum All Collectibles, Pokenomics. I'll put links in the description. They should already be there, but I'll add Jake in there since he came in and tried to make Dan open a pack. So he's got to get something out of it. Thank you guys so much again for coming on. This was a really fun time, and hopefully, we added to the pull rate percentage. I guess I'll say for 151. I can't say we all did really well, but again, hope you guys have a great night. Thank you, chat. Seriously, appreciate it.
Everybody.
Thanks, everyone.